Public hearing regarding the budget. And to start us off, we're going to have Chairman John Leary say a few words and walk us through a little bit of the history. The reason that the chairman is here is that not everybody has had an opportunity to attend the Board of Education workshops or the Board of Finance workshops. Now's an opportunity to hear a summary of that process, what the end result of that process is, and a basic summary of what the proposed budget looks like to date. After Chairman Leary's comments, we're going to invite the chairwoman of the Board of Education. Colleen, where are you? There you are. Colleen's going to come on up, and she's going to give a brief statement also regarding the Board of Education and any clarifying comments following the chairman of the Board of Finance. So with that, we'll turn it over to you, Chairman Leary.
Okay, members of the Town Council, thank you. Now it's your turn on the budget. So according to our charter, the Board of Finance goes first, passes over what's called a recommendation. We'll see that later in here. And then you'll have it for a few weeks, and you'll come back with the final budget, in which case the Board of Finance will look at it and determine what the mill rate is. So let me get started, and I'll go through it, and then I'll give you a copy of this presentation, everybody, for the minutes and just to have. I'll start with an overview, get into some detail, and end with a summary, and I'll be happy to answer any questions anyone may have. So the Board of Finance recommended budget. The tax increase, 4.25%. The mill rate goes from 30.36 to 31.65. The impact on a $300,000 appraised property, which would be assessed at $210, we do a 70% assessment. The current tax would be $6,376 a year. The proposed would be $6,646, which is an increase of $270. So $270 for every $300,000 of appraised value or market value. The Board of Ed operational spending is up $6.4 million in this recommendation, or 5.8%. General government spending is up $1.8 million, or 2.9%. Grand list growth was growth, but it was soft at $14.8 million. That generated $450,000 of new tax revenue on stuff that was not here in the previous year. A little bit of context. So we'll take a quick look at our federal government, quick look at our state, because we sit under it all. So the outlook for the federal government is real gross domestic product at 2.3% in 2024, 1.7% in 2025. Gross domestic product is the value of goods and services made in the USA to show the growth of the U.S. economy. We're seeing a cooling labor demand. Labor demand is softening, but we have 4.2% predicted unemployment by the end of the year. We have very cautious consumers. Consumers are exercising more scrutiny on spending. Income growth is softening. Costs are elevated. Interest rates are high. Credit card debt at $1.13 trillion at December 2023, and it was $870 billion at December 2018. It's an all-time high credit card debt. Inflation is with us. Energy's up. Core goods are up, and housing is up. 2024 inflation prediction is 2.2% over the prior year. Just one thing to remember, it's cumulative. So the large inflation that we saw, it doesn't go down, it stays with you. The growth rate of inflation slows. We could talk about that. There is federal easing, so the federal funds rate is 5.25%, the rate at which the government borrows, and economists predict 3 reductions in that in 2024. There are some risks. The downside risks, oil prices increasing, supply chain distress, and high interest rates. And an upside, on the upside, is strong labor and productivity. And you could argue them a little bit here and there. It was just a high-level overview. State government, state of Connecticut, strong economy, 3 jobs open for every 2 jobless persons. We regained all the jobs lost in the pandemic, and we have forecasted gains in the industrial sector. However, debt and obligations, Connecticut is the 5th worst funded retirement healthcare obligation among all states. We have $20 billion in unfunded obligations, and Connecticut assets can only fund 5% of its obligations. Just keep in mind underfunded pensions. Teachers are 57% funded, and state employees are 46% funded. And just for folks who may not know, teacher retirement is paid for by the state. Here in Southington, just a couple of facts put in here: 36.6 square miles, population of 43,501. Employees 1,392 with 1,127 in the Board of Education. Students, 6,262. Our credit rating from Standard & Poor's is AA+, Moody's is AA2. Those are just one below the top. Reserves. Undesignated fund balance at June 30th, 2023 is $32.4 million. It's 17.8%, and policy is 11%. So we have more in there, about $12 million more in there than our policy. So we're ahead of the game. Debt, we have $143.4 million, and our limit is 7 times tax receipts. We're at 14% of our borrowing limit. A lot of people always ask, where are we with debt? Are we taking on too much debt? We're at 14% of our borrowing limit. Our grand list is at $4.687 billion, and our annual budget that we're here to talk about is $181.8 million for the year. 2024-25 budget overview. We say 24-25 because the fiscal year begins on July 1st, ends on June 30th. Total annual spending in the budget is $181,816,575. Education operations, $116.8. It's up $6.4 million or 5.8% from the current year. General government, $51.9 million, up $2.5 million or 5.1% from the current year. We did adjust it for fund transfers, and that's how we get the 2.9% increase. Debt service, $13.1 million. It's down $43,000. It's just how the debt is structured. Animal control budget, $300,846. Sewer is $6.9 million, and we always vote on year one of the 5-year capital plan, which is $24.6 million of spend for capital projects. Our mill rate again goes from 30.36 to 31.65, up 1.29 mils or 4.25%. Grand list, again, $4.7 billion, up $14.8 million. Looking at revenue, this is where somebody gets a little curious. When we look at revenue, our revenue and expenses are the same number. Revenue is $181,816,575. 148 of it comes from property taxes. State grants for education are $21.2 million. State grants for the town are $2.7 million, generally the roads. Investment income, $3.1 million because we have the rainy day fund invested. We get investment income of $3.1 million. It's one compensating factor for high interest rates is they're a little higher on our savings. Federal grants, $215,000, and that's the Fireman Safer grant mostly. A fund balance utilized $2 million. We took $2 million of our prior year surplus and used it for capital this year. And then town service fees. These are fees the town charges for different things, building permits being one of them, town clerk fees, conveyance tax when real estate's sold, $4.3 million. That's a little look at where revenue comes from. Again, the majority is local property tax. On the expense side, where does it go? So expenses for the general government, $51,937,552. Public safety is $16.7 million, that's police and fire. Fringe benefits, $13 million, those are health care and other benefits given to the employees across the town. Public works, $6.9 million, our roads, our parks are all part of that. General government, $5.4 million, our offices, our legal. Capital expenditures, $3.1 million, are cash-funded capital expenditures. We'll talk later when we get into capital, how do we pay for capital? Just remember here that $3.1 million comes from our expenses, and $2 million of the $3.1 we took from the rainy day fund. The library, the cost to operate the library, $1.8 million for the year. Planning and development, $1.5, those are the land use departments. We have a $1.3 million contingency built in for an unknown budget item. It's $850,000, then there's some extra in there for contracts that haven't been settled. Then Health and Human Services, $1.2 million, Recreation, $1 million. That kind of gives you an idea of where the money goes on the general government side, and we'll talk about Board of Ed later. Capital expenditures, a lot of people have questions with this. One of the big questions is, can we cut any? Can we reduce any? Can we defer any? Is there anything we can do here in capital to not have the taxes increase 4.25%? That's a question we get a lot. So I broke it down differently than it's in your budget book. All the numbers here do tie, but it just shows it a little bit different. So capital expenditures, the year one of the 5-year capital plan is $24.6 million. Cash funded, $1.7 million. So we have IT projects, $375, ongoing sidewalk work, $250, although a lot of those are the school access sidewalks. Paving, $100,000, townwide roofs, $50,000, townwide heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, $100,000. The turf field, where the referendum didn't pass for the redo of all the fields at the high school, so we have to, it's not zero, we have to do something. So you see some turf field work at $125, that's half the cost to refurbish the turf field. Highway equipment, $91,000. Leaf vacuums, $166,000. A vac-all, $75,000. Then some vehicles. Fire department, $75,000. The town share of another bus for the Dial-A-Ride program, $28,000. That's just the town share. The rest is a grant. You'll see later. Building department, $34,000. Parks and highways, $49,000. Board of Education, $60,000. Those are for vehicles. Going a little further, cash funded in 2025, road work, $400,000. Cash funded by transfers, that's money we're gonna take at the end of this year, predicting a surplus. We're gonna direct some of the cash before it turns into a surplus into a police network, police radios, police cameras. Then the use of the excess rainy day fund, again, took $2 million from there. The Board of Ed athletic field, $650. The salt storage building, half of it, the big building that holds the salt and keeps it dry, $488,000, and we're trying to find an economical way to build it, but we at least set aside the money. None of this will be spent until we go through the bidding process, and this is just what we put aside in our budget. A fire truck, $850. And then grant funded, $3.3 million. 2 new bridges, Newell Street over the Quinnipiac River, $2.4 million. LOCIP, which is an acronym for Local Capital Improvements. That's a state grant, $280,000. Road aid, $500,000. And here's the rest of the bus, $112 for the Calendar House busing program or Dial-A-Ride. And then ARPA funded. So we still have a little bit of the COVID money left. As many of you know, we got in about $13 million of that. We've used it for, we've directed it all to capital. What does that mean for everybody? It means we got the money, we didn't ask for it, we didn't necessarily need it, but it was given to us, so we put it to good use, and we used it to fund capital projects that we would have had to fund anyway. So that's where our ARPA COVID money ended up. So with the little bit left of it, highway dump trucks, park improvements. Bond funded. Bond funded means we're going to borrow for it, and we have a little bit of work to do on our bridges, on our part that wasn't completely grant funded. There's a South End Road Bridge, and then we have this townwide road bond funded item. This is the referendum item. People who went out to vote in November were asked a question, do you want to support the town in a $15 million bond offering to maintain the roads? This number is required because the state TAR grants, as they call them, are not enough to maintain hardly anything. And so we go forward on our own with 15 million and we maintain the roads. We use it up over a number of years. So this is where some of the money comes from. Now we'll get into a little bit about staffing. That's always a question. What are you doing with staffing? Do we have the same footprint or did it change? Board of Education, when the budget was proposed to the Board of Finance, the full-time equivalents were 1127. In the proposal was to bring that to 1139 or an addition of 12. It's not 12 people per se, it's 12 full-time equivalents. It's really up slightly over 1%. So while it is 12, you have to understand the Board of Ed does maintain 1,127 full-time equivalents. So 12, when you look at it statistically, it's a little over 1%. General government goes up 1 person. We're adding 1 police officer for a total of 73 certified police officers. And that's a little bit on staffing. The Board of Ed budget bridge. This question comes up a lot, so I put it in here for you. What happens to this budget? And I can't start in the beginning. We don't have enough time for the whole story. But Eventually, the Board of Ed budget ends up with the superintendent's desk. He'll do what he needs to do to make a proposed budget and propose that budget to the Board of Education. So he started with 119.7. He was up 8.35%. It got into the hands of the Board of Education, and they reduced the request a bit by reducing 6 staff additions for $600,000. The request was for 19 full-time equivalent additions, and it got reduced by 6, but then there was a clerical error, so it really turned into 7, and so 12 of those full-time equivalents are funded. The full-time equivalents, the Board of Finance reduced 1, the Board of Ed reduced 6, for a total of 7. But that was one that we were told was a clerical error, so we just did what we were asked to do and reduce it. Or there was the Board of Education, before it ever came to the Board of Finance, reduced teacher substitutes, adjusted MERS based upon, better known information, that's the retirement system. Purchase services, busing and electrical, they've trimmed that 176. They made an adjustment for summer school. Then they went into special ed MERS and 4 full-time equivalents to a Nexus for 317. Then they went in and looked at projects and equipment. They made an adjustment there for 834. When the Board of Ed was done making adjustments, the Board of Ed approved a budget of 117.3. They adjusted it 2.3 million down from where it started, and they proposed to the Board of Finance 117.3, or a 6.24% increase. Again, there's that same number, just carrying it over so it stays on the slide. So the superintendent proposed 119, Board of Ed brought it to 117, and then Board of Finance looked at it. We adjusted out the 1 new personnel from the clerical error, and then we adjusted self-insurance 118.4, and then we made a general adjustment, non-specific, for $335,000 on the $117 million proposal. The Board of Finance recommended budget for the Board of Ed is 116.8. It's a 5.8% increase to the current year, or a $6.4 million increase over the current year. Upcoming financial items, couple risk items, or just things that are coming at us. I call it the 3-school solution, has a few other names. This is what are we going to do with Darrenowski, Kelly, and Flanders, and the Karen Smith Academy is in there somewhere. We have 71 million in for 3 years in the next 3 years of the capital plan for 213 million, but the details have not been worked out. That's coming at us. This is a forward-looking statement. The high school athletic fields, we got 2.2 million in there in the 25-26 capital plan. Again, the referendum failed, but doing nothing is not an option because there are needs there and there are problems there. So we have to do something. So it's more of a gradual, what can we do? What's the most urgent and important thing to tackle? And then roofs. We're going to go forward with 6.6 million next year in the 25-26 capital plans. Those are 3 things coming at us. And I just put in here, and I'll send it to everybody, it's just a little bit excerpts from the town charter. Basically says what's the Board of Finance's role, why I'm standing here talking about this, and then what the town council will do, and the setting of the mill rate. Just a little bit of ended on that note, and that's where we are. So I'm happy to take any questions any questions you have on the budget. I'm happy to address if anyone has any questions.
Before we take any questions for you, Chairman Leary, should we maybe allow the chairwoman of the Board of Ed?
Absolutely.
She wants to say also a few words. I think maybe we get both of them on the table, please.
It goes with the podium.
Okay.
I'll move it a little though.
No, it's
Give it a
fine.
little
It's
room
fine.
so you don't
I won't, I promise I'll try not to knock it
Push it
over.
off the edge. We'll put
No,
it in
I
the
won't
budget
do-
next year.
I don't think so. Good evening, Chairman Chaplinsky, town councilors, and members of the public. I am Colleen Clark. I reside at 612 South End Road, and I am the chairman of the Board of Education. Before I begin, I would like you to know that I have given you each a document. Some of you, I told what it was. It's a glossary of sorts It's an explanation of jobs and some programs that are often a bit confusing to those who aren't regularly in a classroom setting. As always, should you have any questions regarding this, Mr. Medancy, his staff, or any Board of Ed member will be happy to give you an answer if you need one. I am here tonight to advocate for our children and their education in the Southington Public Schools. As many of you know, this year's budget process was as open a process as we could make it. Our administrators and department heads shared their needs with the full Board of Ed at a public meeting. The superintendent then developed his budget based on the entire list of district needs, which resulted in an 8.35 increase over the current budget. After two public workshops and a special Board of Ed meeting, the board passed a budget resulting in a 6.24 increase over the current year. No year is a good year when dealing with budgets, and I think that's something that we all can agree on. But we cannot continue level service budgets and expect we can continue to address the needs of all our students. The requirement for mandated programs at the high school and a new pre-K program due to the kindergarten age change mean additional staffing. And we have additional mandates from both the state and federal government that have been imposed without proper funding. And we too have been affected by increased costs with utilities, insurance, and purchase services. As I stated in a letter to you and the Board of Finance back in February, we have made every effort to minimize any unnecessary spending and to focus on the most critical areas. Therefore, I am requesting that you restore the Board of Ed budget to the $117,354,089 as we originally requested. So I thank you, and I'm going to ask Mr. Medancy to also say a few words.
Thank you, Chairwoman Clark. Superintendent Medancy, thanks for coming.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Good evening, Town Council members, as well as members of the community present this evening. I understand this is the most significant proposed operating budget the district has brought during my tenure in central office, including my time as assistant superintendent. Although recovering, I understand inflation is still impacting everyone in the community. It also affects the cost of goods, materials, and purchase services required to run the district. The district has not requested any positions in my prior two budgets to maintain level services. This decision has meant that we have had to table needs that have been present for the past 3 years. Unfortunately, some of these needs can no longer wait as they negatively impact areas such as class sizes, student mental health needs, and course offerings across the district. Weekly, I meet with teachers across the district, often just listening and sometimes using the meetings as opportunities to inform or provide context to discussion items when there may be confusion or misinformation. This year, I have sat with roughly 75 teachers in individual or small group meetings. Themes are consistent. Teaching is hard right now. Mental health and support staff are more vital than ever before. Class sizes provide real challenges for specific cohorts or grades, depending on where students may be developmentally at certain educational levels. Administrators are constantly tasked with competing priorities and time demands. They are continually being pulled away from educational leadership to tend to students in crisis, complete investigations, or deal with overly complex procedures derived from state and federal laws. As I took on the role of superintendent in 2022, I faced the complex task of navigating the district through a turbulent financial time. This included reliance on federal grant funds in one operating budget, understanding the economic challenges in the community coming out of the pandemic in another budget season, and accounting for record inflation during last year's budget season. This budget can be a turning point, setting us on a more stable path in future budget years. I hope that in working with you over the past 2 years, I have earned your trust that what I am presenting is genuinely needed and that I have been as transparent as possible throughout the budget process. I look forward to collaborating with you all and answering any questions you may have as we work towards a budget that meets the educational needs of the students in our district. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Colleen and John. Appreciate everybody coming out and giving us a little bit of background on that. And thanks to everybody who is also there to take our questions as these come up throughout the process. What I'd like to do is just say a few words, set some ground rules for the discussion that's before us. a couple requests from me. Number one, please make sure all the questions come through the chair and make sure that you're recognized, and let's try to avoid multiple questions one after the next so that we can give everybody an opportunity to speak. A reminder that we're not here to debate tonight. This is an opportunity for ask clarifying questions of the chairs who are here and get our questions answered, but also to elaborate for the people who are here who are going to come out and speak at the public hearing. And just a reminder, the vote for this will be at our next meeting in 3 weeks. Anything that we hear tonight and any studying that you do between now and three weeks, we can debate on the floor at the next meeting, and we can talk about motions at the next meeting. Please also, as a reminder, the town manager is also here for questions in case any person on the dais wants to ask a question of the town manager. With that, I'll open the floor up to the council for questions. Chris.
First of all, thank you, Colleen and Sean from the Board of Ed. I see you're here. And I think most of the Board of Finance, Wayne, Ed, Kevin, Candace, and John, thank you for your work on the Board of Finance. Did I miss anyone from the
Welcome.
Board of Ed? Oh, and Ed. Yeah.
Ed's here, yeah, Ed.
Did I miss anyone else? Oh, okay. So thank you for your work, both boards leading up to tonight. I'm pleased this year to see, John, I'm pleased that the cash-funded portion of the budget, specifically the ARPA funds, are going towards capital projects. I'm also wondering if you can clarify, there's two different slides in here, the difference between being cash-funded and using our rainy day fund, which
Okay.
is also essentially cash-funded as well. So you denote two different areas, one that says cash-funded and the other use of the rainy day fund.
Okay. The rainy day fund, what that really is it's called an undesignated fund balance. It's an amount of money in the fund that is not designated for any purpose. By policy, we have to keep 11% of revenue in there. We have more than that in there. So the big question is, what do we do with it? We're accumulating more than we need to keep in there per policy. So for the last few years, we take out about $2 million, and we use it for capital. Mark, if you want to just,
No, you're absolutely correct. And then the rest of the money that Mr. Palmieri is talking about is budget reallocation money.
Okay.
and that's from 2 years, right? It's budget reallocation money from,
That's the current year we're in. We've already met all the department heads. We'll be carrying that money over to purchase capital, and that's budget from this particular year into next year's budget for capital items only, which you see right up there.
All right, so just to be clear, the cash funded is from this current year's operational budget, and it's excess that we're going to have.
like
to carry.
anticipated surplus.
Anticipated
Yep,
surplus.
yep.
And
It's
then
it's that amount. I think each time you've come and given an update, we're running roughly 3 million.
Well, it's that's the revenue part. And there's also the money you save on the expense part.
Exactly.
So both of them together will equal budget reallocation. John mentioned the other cash part of it, which is for the rainy day fund.
Right.
And the third cash part of it is $400,000, which is in next year's budget 24-25.
Great. So just to clarify, John, back to my original question, I think if I followed everything correctly, last year, I expressed concern about using any type of revenue that's non-recurring to offset the operational budget.
Right.
It appears this year that there's none of that. It's all, any type of cash funding or surplus is all going towards capital.
That is
Yeah,
absolutely
and it
correct.
always is. It's either capital or the reduction of debt. I don't think we've ever applied surplus to operations.
Well, so like for the non-lapsing account from the Board of Education,
Yeah.
that was essentially surplus for the board, and that was used to fund the operational budget this year.
Yes,
So I
their
don't-
prior year surplus, yes.
And even the ARPA funds, some of it was used in the past to fund operational expenses. But again, I don't see any of that this year.
No,
Okay. So it's all capital funds, any type of.
Yep.
Great. I
yeah,
appreciate
we did, to clarify on the non-lapsing comes from a state law that says that the Board of Ed could carry over 2% of its expenses. Prior to that, it was use it or lose it. So you had to be really good in the Board of Ed Finance Department. Towards the end of the year, you'd encumber almost everything to only return $100 surplus. And you'd encumber, you pay everything off in advance. And it is the use it or lose it mentality. The state became aware of that, passed legislation that said you can carry forward 2%. They called it non-lapsing, kind of a little bit of a wacky name. So we we did originally say, let's use that only for capital because all of our surplus is only directed to capital. In the last maybe 2 years, we changed. We said, well, we gave it to you for operations. That was the argument. We gave it to the Board of Ed for operations. They needed it, but they didn't use it consciously. Not because they didn't need it, because they strategically said, let us hold it, we'll use it next year. So we felt it was in our call, but if we gave it for operations, why not let them use it for operations? Because that's exactly what it was given for in the first place. So that was the twist on this non-lapsing fund,
Good.
is to let them use it back out for operations.
Thank you, Chairman Leary. Councilman Dezak.
John, thank you. You seem to be a little more confident than I am in the three rate cuts to the Federal Reserve. I'd like to know your odds on that. But I guess to follow up on Chris's point, so how would you respond hypothetically if someone came here tonight during public communication and had concerns about a fiscal cliff in this budget? How would you respond to that concern?
First thing I would respond by just thinking to my head, they must have heard something during the campaign. Because the words fiscal cliff are nowhere in the budget. Those were words that came up. They were also used, they're used more locally here. And what people mean by that, and I think everybody would agree, what people mean by that is there was a funding source for something, and then that funding source is no longer there, but the expense remains. That's probably a shared definition. I'll give it just a little bit of an analogy, analogous thing. If Cheshire were paying our electric bill, and they were so gracious to do so, and they did it for year after year after year after year, then one year they said, we're not going to be able to pay that anymore. We need electric. We can't say, oh, we'll just shut the lights off and run in the dark. We would need it, so then we would have to pick that up. That analogy is what is used by almost everybody when the words fiscal cliff are used here in town. It's that's what I would see if somebody said that's the first thing I would think of.
So it's fair to say then that there is no fiscal cliff in this budget. That's how you'd respond?
I would pretty much respond yes. The only thing I would spot in the budget is something like the SAFER grant for the fire department. Okay, we went forward with the SAFER grant. We decided in town we needed 3 firefighters. There was a grant that would fund them for 3 years. It's a federal grant. We needed them, we hired them, but we didn't pay for them. For the first 3 years, they are funded by the federal government. Coming up soon, the federal funding ends. We will continue with those 3 firefighters, and they will come on to the town of Southington's budget where we will pay for them. It's minor. It's the $300,000. It's not $181 million. I wouldn't say it's a fiscal cliff, but it's an example. And don't forget, in the budget, we have stuff that rolls on, rolls off. State grants change and adjust.
Thank you, John. Other questions? Good.
Couple of questions. Thanks, John. Thank you very much for your work, and Colleen and Steve. I know budgets are never easy, but once again, we find ourselves in a position where they're really, really hard this year. Hearing common themes, increases in insurance and electric and materials and goods and rates, 1.13 trillion in credit card debt. I think we're all in trouble there. But can you just explain a little bit what you said, John, about the inflation piece, the federal inflation piece on, you had said cumulative. Just break that down for me and for others.
Yeah,
who maybe not
inflation is a lot like exposure to radiation. It's in a small dose, an economist would tell you inflation is good. In a very small percent year over year, 1%, 1.5%, 2%. It's the normal growth of products, and it comes from demand for products exceeding supply. So you want to have more demand than you have supply. It's healthy. Just think of the opposite. If you have no demand, you have supply, you're stuck with it all, and you have a mess. But we had unprecedented high inflation over a year ago. It pushed up the cost of everything. That cost does not just drop back down. It stays there. It just took a big leap up. You could see it in housing prices. You see it in across the board in a lot of things. The price of stuff went up. now what you're seeing in the paper, if you read and you follow the macroeconomics, they're saying inflation's at 2%, 2.2. Everybody could pick a different number. There's a lot of numbers out there, but they are relatively low. But what they're talking about is the increase this year going forward. The annual increase has shrunk, but the damage was done. That's like saying you have a 3 feet of water in your basement, but you're only going to get 2 more inches. You're like, okay, you're not going to get 2 inches, you're going to get 2 inches on top of the 3 feet. I think that's the best layman's way to explain it. So high inflation is still with us, but thankfully, by raising interest rates, slowing the economy, slowing the demand against supply, we're able to reduce the growth rate of inflation.
Thank you, John. I want to be cognizant, everybody here cognizant, that we are trying to get to the public hearing. So if you have questions, try to target them towards our budget. Anybody else have questions? No.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. John, just a question on the debt service.
Yeah?
Is there a concern, I know the debt service is going to start to increase with the chart that we have here? And is that because of is that the 3 school projects? that
No,
is
it's
driving
more
that?
the library. Stuff rolls on and stuff rolls off.
But right now, we've bonded half, right?
I'm not sure. Jim, where are we with the library bonding?
We're bonding.
Because we have the cash to fund it. We use our excess cash to fund, and then when we get to a certain point, we bond. We've not gone with a bond offering. We plan to.
We bonded approximately $6 million last spring, around this time last year, to match our anticipated cash outflows at that time. It's pretty much online. We are going to be bonding 10 points, the remainder of that authorization, the 10 million and change, this coming fall of 2024. In the budget before you, you see an interest payment that'll be in the spring of 2025, but not a principal payment because that'll start in the 25-26 budget when we start paying the principal back in the fall of 2025. And then that'll finish the library funding as far as the authorization to bond that was approved by citizens at referendum.
So then after that, we're going to have the road and bridge improvements, the Kelly School reconstruction, and then the roofs, which I had a question on. How many roofs are we talking about? It was 6.6 million.
We're talking 3 roofs, and the $6 million is what right now what the prices look like they're going to be. We won't know until it's bid, obviously, and approximately those projects will be partially reimbursed by the state of Connecticut. I don't know what the rate is going to be, but if it's anything like it's been in the past, it'll be probably in the area of about 48%, 47% of eligible costs
Reimbursement
from the state of Connecticut.
That's
That's
next year.
correct.
Not the budget we're talking about, the next one.
next
Yep.
year, okay.
That's correct.
And just quickly for the town manager, so Mark, when you were talking about, and John was talking about the surplus, is that the 1.7 for this year?
Yeah, the 1.7 is what's called, that's capital.
Right.
We're recommending we use budget reallocation money, which includes revenues and non-used expenses. That's how we do budget allocation from the current year, which is fiscal year 23-24.
Right, so that 1.7 is available to do capital projects. Now, is that doing capital projects for both the town and Board of Ed capital projects?
There's, yes, there's some Board of Ed in there also, but in your capital budget, you'll see where it's all in there.
Right, most of it seems to be for the town.
Yeah,
but-
usually that's the case.
So for.
But you'll
for
see in there the turf.
For the most
field-
part, it's
right. You'll see the
mostly
turf
for-
field in there and
Right.
several other items in there.
Some vehicles, 60,000.
See a couple of things in there.
But mostly it's for town.
Right, because it's tough. Board of Ed projects are much bigger than the town's projects, schools
Right.
and things like that. We need bonding for that. We just can't do it with budget
Right,
reallocation.
okay.
You'll find most of the capital that the Board of Ed needs comes through the town side budget. So sometimes it's hard to differentiate in the budget what the total is for Board of Ed versus government, because you do have that capital it's a mix in our capital number.
Right, but when you're looking at this 1.7 that's there, I would say a good percentage of that is being used for town.
That's correct. The list you see on there, exactly what that is.
That's pretty much
That's
the-
how you make that up.
Right there.
With the vehicles on there, you see a BOE vehicle.
So the
and you see
turf field.
The turf field. Everything else would be, if you want to use different budgets, it'd be the TOS budget versus BOE budget.
Okay.
These are the same numbers from the budget book, just grouped by
Yep.
how
No,
they're
that's
funded.
good. Yeah, I like
And
that.
I'll give you this, I'll send this out as soon as I
Thank you.
get to my.
Thank you.
Good questions. Thanks, Val. Others, before I get to you, Chris, for the second time, Jen, Tony, or Jim, do you guys have questions?
I just got a quick one, but it's mostly for either the Board of Ed Chair or Superintendent, which is for our group that we're measured against by the state, Southington had the highest ask for a percentage increase this year. And, the reason I'm aware of that is because some of the surrounding towns said, well, hey, we're only 3 or 4%. We're not like the 8%, which is, they looked at the original things that the superintendent had come with, not what it's here now, right? So I was curious as to why we all went through the same thing last year, correct? We all had inflation. We all had to deal with that. And now this year, why are we asking for more services than, or to be added, than our comparison districts? And reason, if you could just give a very high-level view, it's not the time to be detailed. Thanks.
Yeah, because I think beyond a high-level view, we could have a whole workshop on just that question. So I think acknowledging at the start that we did use ARP ESSER funds, $535,000 and $700,000 in non-lapsing funds last year. So we started with a 1.2% hole. I wouldn't use the term cliff either. It's a hole. So that's revenue that we did not have, but yet our operating budget wasn't reduced by $1.2 million last year. We know that. And so we had to start with those revenue sources that we no longer had access to. We couple that with the fact that, yes, you're correct with other districts in terms of what their number came in, but yeah, you really have to look at what other districts, what their budget history is. And so if they've not only put forward level service budgets the past 2 years, then maybe they didn't have the needs this year that we have after putting forward level service budgets only. And then lastly, you don't know what the bargaining unit contracts come in at and when the bargaining unit contracts are up for negotiations. And some of that, even 2 years ago, budget contracts were coming in far lower than they're coming in at right now, as you probably know on the town side, looking at contracts that you're currently negotiating. So, there's a really a compilation of factors that go into that. And I would say probably all in all, if you look at prior to these 2 years, the 4 years of the almost zero mill increase on the town side, 4 consecutive years, that comes home to roost. I remember Mr. Dietzick, I was actually looking at the video a couple of weeks back, and I had just been appointed superintendent of schools, and the board or the town had to make a pretty difficult decision coming right out of the pandemic when we had just learned of the ARP ESSER funds. And he said, I have full faith in our superintendent that he will figure out a way out of this. I hope over the past 2 years, by putting forward level service budgets only and trying to show fiscal restraint, that we've done that.
Thank you, Steve. Jen, Tony, all set?
Yeah, fine.
Just,
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure Jack gets an opportunity since he hasn't spoken yet.
No, Mr. Morrison, I guess, touched a little bit on the surrounding towns. So again, that's the only thing that I have some concerns on is, when you're watching our neighboring towns and, I believe Bristol went backwards last year. I know they had a reassessment, but Southington also had a reassessment. So it just a little alarming that, when we talk to residents, we're trying to keep taxes low, but at the same time, it's kind of like putting a patch on your roof. It's just buying time, and sometimes that patchwork ends up causing more damage, which costs us more in the long run. So I'm just a little concerned on that, but other than that.
Thank you, Jack. Chris?
Yeah, just
Thanks
a
for your
comment.
patience.
No problem. I intentionally didn't use the word fiscal cliff. I know that's alarming to some people to use that term, so I intentionally didn't use that. But actually, Steve just highlighted it. My concern, which is why I started by asking what the plan was for the 24-25 budget, is that we used sources of revenue that are not recurring or replenishable year after year in past years, in the form of some ARP ESSER funds, and for the Board of Education, the non-lapsing account. So I know with the town side, we were deliberate. This council and the manager were deliberate in using those COVID relief funds only for capital projects because you don't need to come up with that revenue the next fiscal year. So That was my concern, so it still is a concern because we did use it last year. I'm grateful that in this year's budget, from what it appears, there is not any use of funds that are not replenishable from year to year moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Okay, any last questions? John, Colleen, thank you.
Okay.
Jim, thanks for coming out. Steve, we appreciate all the clarifications. We will now open the floor to the public. If anybody would like to come out and make some comments about the budget, please come right on up to the podium and state your name and address for the record and let us know what you're thinking.
Hello, everyone. My name is Louis Schassler. I live at 24 Vernondale Court in Southington.
Yeah, just if you could talk into the microphone, sir.
Hello, can
Thank
you
you.
hear
We're
me?
recording it.
Sorry. My name is
Appreciate
Louis
that.
Schassler. I live on 24 Vernondale Court in Southington. Me and my family moved to Southington in 2002 and purchased a home. My wife and I raised 2 children, went to Southington schools. During that time, I volunteered as a coach at the Southington Girls Softball League and the Western League and the Southington High School Marching Band. I had a small on-site computer system business for 7 years until 2010. I was a member of the Chamber and a member of the Lions Club. In 2020, I became permanently disabled due to medical conditions. I'm receiving Social Security disability. In 2021, my wife also became disabled from having cancer 3 times in the last 11 years. Since that time, our household income has dropped 50%. I contacted the assessor's office to see what assistance there are for people for their taxes, and I was told the only program in Southington is through the state, and the state has a maximum income level for $53,400 for a married couple and $43,000 for singles. And the state only allows you $9,600 credit for your spouse. How they come up with that number, I do not know. The tax breaks for that, you get $1,000 off your assessed value, and the assessor told me that's about a $35 tax break a year. You also get a sliding scale reduction on taxes between $250 to $1,000. To receive the $1,000, you would have neither yearly income of $13,000 to $14,000. I don't think anybody in Southington would have a home to receive $1,000. Now, the maximum of $53,400 would give you a maximum tax break of $250, which is only $280 a year. That's one trip to the grocery store today. Last year, my home and auto taxes was $64,017. My wife and I received disability income of $54,216. So after paying my town taxes, that leaves us with an income of $47,696. We have a mortgage, and as you know, Connecticut has one of the highest utility rates in the country. I don't know any of you married members could live on $47,000 a year in this town and pay your mortgage and all your expenses. There are 9,000 seniors in this town between 65 and over 80. I don't know how many seniors fall into these categories. There are 5% of our total population in Southington are disabled, and I'm pretty sure all of them can use assistance if they own property. I know the town of Southington gives many tax breaks for businesses. In January, the town passed the Sports and Recreation Amusement Theme Park, which gives 50% tax breaks from the town for 5 years with investment of $200,000. None of these tax breaks will be reimbursed by the state of Connecticut. There is an enterprise zone tax break for manufacturers, 5-year, 80% tax break on personal and real property. Under this program, the town is responsible for 50% of that. And there's also commercial developers in enterprise zone get 7-year tax break on real estate taxes with a 100% tax break for 2 years and a sliding scale of 5 to 10%. Now, other towns in Connecticut give tax relief on top of the state. For example, Farmington gives their residents a $1,000 tax exemption for disabled with no income requirements, and an income level for seniors of $65,400. Handham gives a level of a maximum $65,000 of income, and they would receive a tax reduction of $750 for married couples and $500 for singles. Newtown gives tax relief based on income levels. In Newtown, if you earn, which would cover my category, $50,000 to $60,000, gets tax relief of $2,200. I don't know if Southington, does any of you know does Southington give tax breaks to any residents other than businesses? Does anybody here know that? Well, it took a little looking. Now, I know volunteer firefighters are very important to this town. They do get quite a few perks to volunteer, but one jumped out at me. Volunteer firemen get a yearly tax abatement of up to $2,000. So I'm not really, so I'm just asking the town of Southington, perhaps we can do more for our most valuable citizens when it comes, vulnerable citizens, when it comes to tax relief, without having to worry about the town putting a lien on our property, or perhaps even, God forbid, that our property is taken away because we can't pay these exorbitant 4% or more tax increases every year. All we're asking is to be able to stay in our homes that we've been here our whole lives due to problems that were none of our own making, but from being sick and ill. All we ask is to let us have a little dignity while we're still here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else want to talk? Come on up. Good evening.
Hi. Just kidding. My name is Lynn Johnson. I live at 140 Pheasant Run. I rarely attend meetings, and I never speak, but I felt I really needed to tonight. I'm here to say that I am against this budget, specifically the Board of Education budget. I do not believe that the taxpayer should have to pay this increase, especially not now with the rising costs of pretty much everything, from gas to food to rents. I have lived in Southington my entire life. I'm now retired, and I no longer am getting raises like when I worked, and there are many other residents like me here. I still have all my expenses. I have to live within my means. And I also think that the Board of Education also needs to live within their means. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could all have the BMW? But that's just not realistic. The costs of rents in town are very high already. And if this tax increase goes through, then the rents will also increase to cover the added costs. There are so many individuals who grew up in town, like my own children, who can't even afford to live here. And they can't even stay in their hometown to live, and increasing these taxes is only going to make this worse. And the Board of Ed may want extra teachers, and they may want extra personnel, but they need to prioritize, and they need to move from other line items if that is the priority for them, but they need to stay within their budget like everybody does. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Would anybody else like to speak? Good evening, Patricia.
Nice. I walked out of my shoes. Good evening. My name is Pat Tevelasi. I live at 99 Westbrook Road in Plantsville. I'm here to talk about the budget and my opposition to a large increase. I understand things change. Times have changed. We do need increases. We need to fix things. I do believe our Board of Ed needs a certain standard. The question is, I'm trying to choose my words correctly here, and I'm going to use a standard of expectation. What's creating these jobs? Why do we need more psychologists? Why do we need more all these things? Why? Why aren't the parents being given that responsibility? Yes, there are exceptions. There are homes that are brutal, parents that are brutal, and these kids need help, but they're a very small amount. As a rule, most of the parents in this town who can afford to live here have insurance. This is a parent's obligation, so why are we hiring so many more people? I mean, I'm going to go off topic just a bit with that. Is it to handle all this transitioning stuff happening? Because don't say it doesn't happen. It happened to my own family just a short while ago, where the school board never made them aware this was happening. But psychologists were involved that were on our payroll, and we were paying them. Don't the teachers get paid by the tax dollars of the people of this town? Don't they owe the parents explanations or communication at the very least? So I ask, with these frivolous programs, ukulele, knitting, pottery, why are we spending things on this when we have children that have these issues? And we're asking for bigger budgets for these other things, but we're not cutting the fat. And I know in the past, they've cut things. And, no offense, but this is how I see it. The Board of Ed will cut things and then cry out to the people of the town, see, now your kids won't have this. Now your kids will have to have 25 in a classroom. We need more teachers. We need more this. Well, cut the things that don't matter, not those things, and then put everybody on that plate and make you feel sorry. Then we have to bring the budget back and raise it again. They need to cut the fat, and there is a lot of it. It can be cut. We don't need frivolous programs. We need kids that can read and write. We want to fix our sport fields. We want to have a roof over their heads. We don't need all the other stuff. As far as outside expenses, my family has insurance. I would expect communication from a school, and with that referral, bring my child to a therapist. I wouldn't put that on the taxpayers of the town of Southington. So I'm just saying, in a matter of how we spend money in this town, let's bring this in a little bit. Let's rein this in and look at the things we actually need that are essential and necessary, and not things that can be put back onto the parents' shoulders to where they should be, because that's why we have our children. We're here to take care of them. We need the communication from the school board to know when things are going wrong. So my question is to you, how much are you willing to stand up and say, maybe not this year? I mean, the state's having a problem. They cash checks with their mouths that they can't even pay. They're cutting back services, and I know that in the field I work in. Important services got cut for people with disabilities. I mean, this is what I do, and I was appalled, and I was like, are you kidding me? But they kept the fat. I'm saying, look at this realistically, please. I love the Board of Ed. My kids went through these schools. However, there are things that can be tightened up. And right now, I'm only focusing on that because that's where I see the biggest budget problems. So I thank you for your time, and I know this is difficult, and you guys are all the best group of people to work on this, so I hope that you'll come back with a realistic solution. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak? If so, please come on up to the podium.
Susan Zabahansky, 28 Working Street. So I just want to touch on some of the things. It's the same topics over and over again. I also think that the Board of Education budget in our town is well beyond what we need. They got a substantial increase that raised our mill rate last budget, and now they're asking for an even more substantial increase, adding 7 elementary school teachers and psychologists, which to the fiscal cliff talk, the school psychologists were paid with ARP ESTER funds, and with the knowledge that those positions were going to end when the ARP ESTER funds ran out. Now they're trying to put those psychologists into our budget. That's what's creating the fiscal cliff, adding what they said was going to end in, and then expecting the taxpayers to continue funding that. I agree with Ms. Tavolazzi that should be an obligation of a parent. There's a certain number of psychologists I'm sure we need in schools. However, they should be acting as a temporary first aid per se, and then it should be allocated to the parents to continue on with that outside of the school systems. Our school systems are for education, not for mental health treatment centers. Athletic fields are being paid for by our capital budget, despite the fact that the taxpayers said no. Now it's just being paid over time, which I think is deceptive to the people who voted no. It should have went back to referendum if we wanted to continue, not just going under the amount that the taxpayer has to approve. The Board of Ed has still had an increase in their budget year over year, despite that we've had no, or like a 0 to 0.5 mill rate increase. It's ridiculous to say that their budget has not increased. It's increased every year, even though we've kept our mill rate low. 30% of the population in Southington is senior citizens. That's unique to this town compared to other surrounding towns. There's many single income families in this town, myself included, and it gets tough year over year to continue having tax increases. So I encourage you all to really look at this budget deep because people are suffering. The people in this town, we heard from the first gentleman, it makes my heart break. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. If anybody else is going to speak tonight on this, please feel free to come down and be ready to speak behind the podium.
Regina Covello, 12 Beecher Street. I've been to some of the workshops in the finance board and all that, and I do feel that they did a pretty good job. It was higher. They did lower it. I'm one of those people in town that does have financial issues, that really doesn't want the mill rate to go up. But I also have grandchildren in the school system, and there has to be budget for them too. And as far as children with any sort of mental disabilities or anything like that, every child deserves to go to school. And we do have special schools for some of the kids. And when they get to a certain point, then they can be, transferred to our regular school system. Maybe if we had more paraprofessionals in our regular school system, maybe some of the cost could be taken away, because then we'd have more kids in a regular school system trying to, be, mix in with our kids. And no, every kid deserves an education. And there are a lot of parents that don't have insurance and all that. So if you have 6 kids in there, but you're paying for them, then there's one kid who has a disability, and you're going to say, no, they can't go to school? No. Like I said, I'm willing to, I thought they did a good job with the budget. Yeah, it's going to hurt me. But I also don't want to hurt the kids in this town. Thank you.
Thank you, Regina. Anybody else? Anybody else? Okay. What I'd like to do is, before we close this, I wanted to just maybe give the any clarifying comments. Mark, did you want to make any comments about anything else? To the superintendent, I know there was some questions about school psychologists, what they do, what they don't do, maybe our ESSER funds and funding. If
Thank
you
you.
want
I
to
think
take the opportunity to clarify anything else.
I don't want to take any more of your time this evening. I appreciate the opportunities you provided. Just one point of information. There are no proposed added school psychologists in the budget that is before you.
Okay.
So I'm just offering that up.
That's it?
Yep.
Okay. Any last comments? If none, then we will close the public hearing. Thank you, everybody, for coming out. We're now going to move into the regular business meeting. If everybody can please, actually, Madam Clerk, let's please call the roll.
Toni Morrison.
Here.
Christopher Palmieri.
Here.
Jack Perry.
Here.
Jennifer Klock.
Here.
Michael Del Santo.
Present.
Valerie DiPaolo.
Here.
William Diedzik.
Here.
James Morelli.
Here.
Paul Chaplinsky.
Here. Thank you, everybody, for coming out for the public hearing. We appreciate all the teachers, administrators, staff coming out. We are now going to do a prayer with Councilman Dietzick, followed by the flag salute.
Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you this evening asking for your direction and guidance. Keep us focused tonight on what is best for Southington and her people. Amen.
Shh, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, the first item, or item number 2, is action from the meeting minutes from our last meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve those minutes.
Second.
We have a motion for the approval of the meeting minutes and a second. Are there any discussions? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions?
I'll abstain.
We have 2 abstentions, Chris and Jack. Anybody else? Okay. Motion passes 702. Yes. 603. Thank you, Jim. I didn't want to push you, Jim, but hey.
3 or 4 weeks.
Welcome back. Okay, we're moving into item 3, the panhandling presentation.
Good evening. Bill Palmieri, 52 Beverly Drive, Bread for Life board member. Several months ago, we came before the council to discuss panhandling, and we had three options on the table. One was an ordinance change, some signage, and also an informational campaign. We got together, Bread for Life, community services, and other stakeholders, and we've decided to go with a educational awareness campaign, which resulted in the brochure that you have before you today. It's going to be a four-pronged approach. The first prong is tonight. We want to share with you the educational campaign. The second prong will be tomorrow. We're going to send a press release out. We're also, tomorrow, we'll leverage all our social media, the town's clerk's website, to get the message out. And then the final stage will be going out to our stakeholders and meeting with and putting on a small 10 to 15-minute presentation about what we can do to help the panhandling situation in Southington. The reason why we went with the awareness campaign was really a simple thing where if we raise education of the resources that are in our community to help people, then the people will know and contact these services. And we're also looking, it could be something, a donation of money, a donation of goods, but it's also a donation of time. And that's going to be part of our presentation when we go out to the different civic groups or businesses to talk about it. So we firmly believe the best method was raise awareness, make people understand if you give your dollars or your time or your effort here, it's going to be paid back 100-fold. And you have to deal with, some people say, are there panhandlers that are gaming the system? Yes, that's a reality. But the people that truly need the help, they're directed to the right resources, and we figure that's the best way to get our message out. So we'll answer any questions you may have.
Any questions from the team that's here? Chris?
Not a question, just, there's one typo I see on the first page, hopefully you can correct it. In the bottom, should I give money? So it should just be, should you give money?
Okay, we can get that fixed.
Yeah. I don't know if these are I just saw it, so just want to share that. But with that direction, thank you for all your efforts on this. I know this has been an issue in the community and truly appreciate you tackling this and giving an answer to the members of the community. So really, really appreciate it. Thank you.
Jen?
I just had a comment. This makes me so proud to live in Southington. Instead of ignoring an issue or taking adverse action, you come together and educate and provide empathy, and it just makes me very proud to live in this town. Thank you for everything that you're doing for this.
Anybody else? Comments, questions?
I'll second that.
Jim?
Thank you,
Yeah.
guys.
Yeah,
Val?
I want to second that as well. And do you have a plan for who you're going to be meeting with?
Yeah, well, tomorrow Don and I will go to the Clergy Association, then Missy and I will be going to, next month, to the behavioral stakeholders. We have the library, Chamber of Commerce, Calendar House, YMCA, the Steps Board, the Board of Education, PTOs, civic groups, Board of Police Commissioners. We're, even a business, if you have a business and you have a group of people and you want, because we're going to try and get out and talk to people, because that's the most effective thing. Because if we sit down, we can answer questions and we can just direct them. And you got money, time, and talent. If we can get people to get out there and help too, it's going to be a home run ball. So anybody, any group, we will be there spreading the word.
I think the behavioral stakeholder meeting will be great because you're going to get a whole slew of people there. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you for coming. We appreciate it. Okay, we are now moving into item number 4, councilperson communications. Anybody have anything for councilperson communications? Nothing? All set?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to do that.
Okay, you want to
We
do that
will.
last?
Last.
Okay. I've got a couple things.
I do too.
So just a couple things. They just left, Donna and Missy, but last Thursday, there was a community conversation held at Bread for Life on the issue of food insecurity for youth in town. So I just want to thank Bread for Life for putting that on, their board of directors, the participants of a panel. Steve Medancy was on the panel, Lisa Ryder from DCF, Donna Ayer. So it was an excellent turnout. And it's just, you know, it's an issue in town. It's, you know, the food insecurity in town, I think it's about 22% that's reported of the youth, which they believe there's probably more youth that are food insecure. So it's an educational campaign, but hoping to maybe start to take some practical steps as well. So excellent, excellent conversation.
Val,
And-
can I add a comment to that? I also heard, I was talking to Janet Mellon, and she also told me a really heartwarming story about a approximate 20-year homeless person in town who is part of the services regularly that a lot of these community organizations provide. And they shared with me that this person, after 20 years of relationship and support from the community, in both directions, of course, they reported that this person has been reunited with their family and has been rehomed with their family and now, back on their feet. And it was really great to hear that we don't give up. The town resources that we have here, the volunteer resources, community services, Bread for Life, all of them, no matter what the circumstances, they don't give up. And it's great to hear stories like that. So I wanted to share that with you guys.
Right, no,
Thanks for letting me
thank you for that. And it just really shows the amount of people that, that came to the community conversation. I mean, the room was packed, good panel discussion, good questions, and really people asking, what can we do? It's okay to educate, but that's sometimes the first step. And then it's, trying to get things done, so. And then just a reminder that the First Congregational Church, the 300th anniversary dinner is Monday, May 6th. So if anyone wants tickets to that, anyone in the community wants tickets to that, they can get that through our church, the church office.
Is that online, Val, or is it in person only?
You can go online and you can contact and even just call.
Wonderful.
And they'll help you out.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you.
Other councilperson communications? Chris?
Too bad Bill left. Just a reminder to the community, Southington Unico announced their gold medal recipient for this year, and it's Bill Palmieri. So that event will be held Wednesday, May 15th at the AquaTurf. If anyone's interested in attending, those tickets are $85 and can be obtained at Fazzulo and Albini CPA and 16 Cornerstone Court, or Maximum Sound and Security, 1550 Meriden Waterbury Turnpike. And again, the event is Wednesday, May 15th at the AquaTurf.
Hey, Chris, real
Yeah.
quick. None of your advertising for that has the price of the tickets. So can you go back?
Sure.
My mother has been driving me nuts. 'cause
It's
she wants to pay.
$85 per person.
I know. I'm going to do it tonight.
Yes.
And I just keep forgetting to ask. She's
Yes.
got a Venmo. She's driving me nuts. So, thank you.
Sorry, $85 per ticket. Sorry about that.
Sorry, Mom. I found out, Mom.
Got it. Also, really to go along with some of what we heard tonight with our group from Bread for Life, Southington Community Services is doing a winter warmth drive now. The reason they're doing it now is because a lot of people are cleaning out their closets as they're getting ready for the spring. Today started out a little chilly, but other than that, it's been getting warmer. So if anyone has any winter clothing items that they'd like to donate, we're taking donations now. All the schools are partnering with community services, churches, I think the library. So there's various organizations around town. You can donate any winter clothing items that you're interested in donating, and then they will store them and then hand them out appropriately next fall to people in need. And then finally, just an update. I try to give a monthly update on STEPS, especially with the relationship with our police department. Our board had the retreat this month. And the survey data was reviewed. So if we remember, every 2 years we give surveys to students in 7th, 9th, and 11th grade. And it's just to get the pulse of the community to see if we're making an impact in the right direction with some of our youth. So the board retreat occurred this month, and we're planning a community conversation. We've done it in the past to share those results with the whole community at large. So stay tuned for that. Our C3 program, which took the place of similar to a DARE program, which is a partnership with STEPS and the Southington Police Department, has been very successful in our elementary schools. In fact, Megan and Bill are presenting to SROs in our region to maybe do a similar program in other towns regionally as well. And then finally, STEPS, in partnership with the Southington Police Department, is continuing merchant compliance checks. Unfortunately, there are some sales of vape products and cannabis products to underage youth. So the police department, in partnership with STEPS, is continuing to do compliance checks to hopefully rein all those in. So just wanted to share those updates with the community.
Thank you. Chris?
You're welcome.
Anybody else? Jen, Tony, Bill? Jim?
Yep. I wanted to take a minute to congratulate Donna Bullard, who had an art exhibit last week that I was unfortunately unable to go to. It was very disappointing for me. Donna does some phenomenal artwork as well as knitting. And what a lot of people don't know about Donna is that she's been a board member of the ARC for probably 3 or 4 years now. And not just a board member, she's a recording secretary. And she does a great job. So again, congratulations to Donna, also Soka for helping her and supporting her, and the ARC. Thanks.
Thank you, Jim. Congratulations to Donna. Okay, I had 2 items, if there's no others. I had 2 items before I turn it over to Mike Del Santo. Dan, would you do us a favor? Would you just come up and get ready here? If you can, there's a laptop here. If you can just sit where the laptop is, we'll get to you in 1 second. You could put the laptop on the corner there. Yeah, so 2 things. You know, we talked about the budget, and there was some recent social media posts about the police department budget, and I wanted to just first give a shout out to the police department today. You know, on a personal note, many of you have heard, maybe saw on social media that there was a stolen vehicle. We've actually recovered a handful of stolen vehicles and caught a bunch of bad guys recently, but this one hit close to home. I was the unlucky recipient of one of these alleged stolen vehicle criminals. Came running through from the high school, came running through my neighborhood today. So I happened to witness this, and the police department with the K-9 did a fabulous job, you know, capturing this suspect. And I want to give a kudos to the Southington Police Department for the work they do, because it's not often that, you know, I certainly don't get to see it up close. I saw it up close and personal today, and that was it was amazing to see the professionalism that they exude in all aspects of what they do. So thank you, SPD. One other item, Plantsville Downtown Safety Project. We had a small, I would say, a snag in the downtown Plantsville. It was determined that there was some small elevation issues and grading issues. The town manager had invited me to meet with him upon my request with the engineering department to walk the site. So if you hear a little bit about some of the things, or if you drive down Plantsville and you see a curb is a little bit higher or lower, don't worry. The engineering department is aware of it. This is a state project that's managed by a state project manager. However, we have oversight, and we're working with them regularly. They are aware of the issue. It is, you know, not going to hopefully add a whole lot of time to the project. They're working on it, and once the finished product is good, it'll look the right way, it'll perform the right way. But nothing there that's going to stop the project. So just in case that there's some chatter there, don't worry about that. The town is all over that and working very hard to ensure that that's taken care of. Still planning on, for those, I had heard rumors that this was going to go into next year. Right now, the estimation is that it will still be done this construction year, so more to come on that. Okay, so with that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it over. You know what we're going to do, Dan? We're going to pause on that, and we're going to turn it over to Mike and allow him to take over a little bit. You could put the poster down.
Quick thing. We all know by now that we lost Mr. Joe Laporte a few weeks ago. And there are only a handful of men and women from Joe's generation still around that have done so much for their community. I know I gave the rundown at the last meeting, but I need to say it again. I mean, he was responsible in part for the creation of Southington Youth Soccer, Southington Youth Wrestling, the Italian-American Festival we have every year on Center Street, the creation of Western Little League, 30-plus years on the Southington Parks Commission, 2 terms on the Southington Town Council, and a member of many fraternal organizations, clubs, his church, and many other appointed, elected, and volunteer positions in town. Joe was everywhere. Whether it was sitting or dancing or singing at Music on the Green, front and center with his beautiful wife Dolores every Wednesday night, or showing up at a random Little League game, he always had a smile on his face, and he loved to be with his community. Danny, We thank you, your mother, your entire family for allowing Southington to share your dad with us for all these years. As someone up here, along with my colleagues that have been serving for years, I am sure Dad missed a lot of family dinners, family events, his children, and then his grandchildren's games and school events because he believed that service to his community was a close second to service to your family. And we all feel that way up here. We all do the same thing. When he passed, I knew there would have to be something done to honor Joe's legacy, commitment, and dedication to our great town. Seeing that Joe was so instrumental to youth sports in town, I thought it would make sense for this body to dedicate something significant in one of our magnificent parks. The Southington Community Pavilion that sits on the drive-in property at Recreation Park was something that Joe put a lot of effort and devotion into. And I've heard from a reliable source as one of his last great hurrahs, and he was very, very proud of it. The Southington Community Pavilion is not just about wood and steel, but more about the spirit of selflessness, the love for our community, and the belief that investing in our youth is an investment in our future. I'd like to make a motion to add an action item later tonight to rename the Southington Community Pavilion the Joseph J. Laporte Community Pavilion.
I'll second.
When the time's right, we'll allow you to second, yes. We're going to take that up in old business. Dan, if you could just hang in there for a few minutes.
Sorry to fool you and trick you
we're
to
gonna,
get here.
We're going to ask you, Dan.
The other way around it. And sorry, Patty.
We're going to take a vote on this. We'll take a vote on this in a couple minutes, and then we'll give you a chance if you want to say anything. We're going to get to it in old business because we want to let the public also come up and if anybody has anything to say about this or other things, okay? So if you can hang loose for 15 minutes or so. Okay. So why don't we move on? Thank you, Mike. That was excellent, and we're going to revisit that in a few minutes. Okay. Let's move on to reports of special committees, and let's talk about apple harvest. Chris.
Yeah, the meeting was canceled last week because there really hasn't been a lot of activity. I just want to encourage residents, applications are open now. If you're interested in applying for a booth, please, I encourage you to get those applications in. If you remember last year, we had a wait list for people that really wanted to be in the festival. Also, the Arts and Craft Fair, the applications are open. So all of that is open now, right online, southington.org. Click on the Apple Harvest Festival link, and you can find all the applications there. So please, I encourage you to do that.
Thank you, Chris.
You're welcome.
Any comments or questions? Okay, let's move on to item B, sewer.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman. Okay, just three things very quickly. The first is Department of Energy and Environmental Protection approved our approach to essentially get rid of PCB contamination at the sewer plant that happened, was found when we redid the sewer plant. There has to be a part two, of course. We're dealing with the state, and that will be looked at in the next 120 days. So as soon as we get those things done, we'll be able to work on the PCB remediation. Second thing is also from DEEP. They approved automatic magnetite chemical feed-in system to the previously installed COMAG phosphorus removal system, as well as some other things. And it's approval to continue with that. That project we already have funded, and it will be handled later in the year. The last item is there's two ordinances that we'd like to put forward to the Ordinance Committee. And I thought I'd bring it up here because obviously Sewer Committee is a subcommittee of the Town Council. The first one is a sewer exchange program. And that comes from a request that's been brewing for several years if you have something outside the sewer lines that we have, property outside it, somebody has asked to essentially connect it up to the sewers. But in order to protect the integrity of the sewer system, and those lines do, because we've looked at it, and if the property if everyone has a sewer in between those two lines, which is essentially the two ridges in town, then the sewer plant can handle it. Okay? But, there could be someone will ask for, I have a property here, it's outside, but it's connectable. And I also have a property inside the sewer lines, and I'll swap it of equal, essentially equal acreage, equal number of bedrooms. I'll swap it. Ergo, we'll keep the integrity of the sewer system and we'll able a development to happen if that's needed. The reason why we need that was really shown in this quarter, where we had massive flows. You may have noticed it rained a bit, and we had massive flows into the sewer plant. And at one time, in January, the maximum flow was 17.8 million gallons, which was huge and is very much near the limit of what our sewer system can handle. And again, in March was just as bad, by the way. In fact, we had 8 inches of rain in March. It's the second highest, wettest month, March, since records began. So we need to keep the integrity of the sewer system, but if we want to, somebody wants to swap properties, then this will make it available. There is a penalty for doing so in the ordinance. And that penalty has to be addressed by the property owner. I mean, nothing is free in this world, okay? Those ordinances, the second ordinance is a formality, and it was given to us at the sewer committee, even though it's technically a water issue. And that's to essentially take an EPA requirement and add it to our stormwater ordinance. So those two are in front of you. They'll be moved to the ordinance committee, where they'll be addressed and adjudicated, and then they'll come back in turn to the town council.
Thanks, Tony. So those are going to go to the ordinance committee, everybody. There's going to be plenty of discussion and dialogue on that within that committee and then back here afterwards. Thanks, Tony. Any questions? Okay, hearing none. Jim, Library Building Committee.
The Library Building Committee held a meeting last Wednesday, and at that meeting, we made some minor changes to the design, I guess is the right way to say it. As we progress, so we're on schedule, and we're pretty close to our budget, and we're seeing some relief on the contingency money that we have, and so we're able to make some improvements where we thought we couldn't. What's this say? I can't read my own writing. Sorry, guys. Oh yeah, we're making additions as the contingencies pay off. So basically, we're working toward getting everything into the building design that we anticipated. We had 3 things that we're not going to be able to cover in the budget, which we're trying to pull back in. One interesting thing that I learned is that when you drive by and you see that pink color on the outside, and then you see the black tape on it. That pink color is a fire retardant, and those black marks are where they're considered to be voids that have to be patched. So it's not going to be a spotted leopard. And that's it for the library.
Maintaining the integrity of the coating.
Yes.
Thank you. Any questions about the Library Building Committee? If not, we'll move on to the Town Manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We had a very brief Board of Finance meeting, but 2 items I wish to bring to your attention. On page 2, our revenues continue to be very strong. We're approximately $3.4 million over anticipated revenues. The vast majority of that's coming from our investment income. There's also a kick in from the building fees and from Kathy Larkin's office. That's positive news. On the flip side, we did hit the contingency for $67,000 for IT. For several items, we invested in an HR module. We also had software for both the building and fire departments. Planet bids, which of course this board approved of, now we paid for that. And then we had to relocate some data to cabinets, and that came to $67,000. That's out of the contingency. Even though the contingency was only $600,000 this year, it looks like it will be enough to carry us only because we had a very, very mild winter.
Thank you.
The next item I had, any questions on the Board of Finance? The next item I have is actually our director, Teresa Babbins, will come up. We went back with some of your input, and Teresa has come together with a plan that we totally support. It's a pilot program, and Teresa will explain it.
Hello, I'm back. Good evening. I had requests from some of you, the last meeting I was at, for additional information. I got that out to all of you, so I hope that was clear. And I also did a little additional research, trying to find a company that would be willing to do some personal property audits for us on a fee basis and instead of contingency like Tax Management Associates had proposed. And I'm happy to announce that we did find Chuck Feldman and Associates. They're actually a Connecticut-based company comprised of 3 certified Connecticut municipal assessors. He had originally said he was thinking the anticipated fee per audit would be between $650 and $750 per audit. His proposal that he did submit actually came in at $625 per audit. And we hope to initiate something of a pilot program. So we have some funds right now. We hope to be able to do, I think it's 35 to 40 personal property audits on a fee basis to start as soon as possible, I think. But most of the funding is going to come after July 1st. So what we do now would be limited. And he is willing to do the audits in any capacity that we request. He has a lot of knowledge and history. He's familiar with the trends in personal property declaration reporting, what types of assets are traditionally underreported or not reported at all. So I think with his knowledge in our assessor's office on a temporary basis, he'll be in and out. But I think that this is a great step forward in terms of the assessor's office being able to do some personal property audits while still being aware of the concerns of the council and in an effort to just do the best we can on this path.
Thank you.
Any questions?
If I may explain the funding aspect of it, there's still funding in my budget for non-legal professional services, and we'll do some transfers. Our plan is that we have a proposal which the corporate council hasn't had a chance to review yet, but the corporate council will review it. I'll have it on your budget for have it on your next meeting, which is your budget meeting. But I'll have it for the 13th. You'll have a chance to obviously review it also, but I want to get to the corporate council. But I do like the pilot program. I know I explained it both to Mr. Palmieri and you, Mr. Chair. I like it in the fact that it takes away the contingency element of it, and they work closely with my staff, which is important because I want to make sure my staff understands what they're going to be doing on that aspect of it. And I do think that if the pilot program is successful through the fiscal year, obviously the end of this year plus next fiscal year, if it is successful, the funding will then be placed in Teresa's budget for next fiscal year, which would be fiscal year 25-26. And she'd have her own budget. But currently, it's going to be coming out of my non-legal professional budget to start the program, assuming the council wishes to move forward with it.
Okay. And the action on that, Mark, is at the next meeting?
Next meeting, yes.
Okay, good. Any questions for this meeting?
Just a couple quick questions. So Teresa, so he had said 650 to 750, so he kind of came back with 625.
625,
which
yep.
is good.
Yeah.
But will that be for businesses with less than $1 million?
That's going to
assessed
be,
value?
yeah, that'll be for businesses anywheres up to $1 million in assets.
Yeah.
He
Did he give you a price?
He did include prices for over $1 million, and I'm not sure that we would actually go up that high, but $1,001,000 is $1,000
his
for the
fee.
audit. Yeah, his fee for that audit, and then 2.5 million to 5 million is $2,000, and I don't think we have anything.
Well, we probably don't have
No.
a huge amount, right?
No.
So the bulk of the
I'd be
audits
more
would
concerned with doing as many audits as possible
Yep.
instead of, eating up the available funds for the larger
For the
companies
larger.
at this point, yeah.
Right. And if we do the pilot program and it's 35 to 40, that would be over the next, still would be over like the next 12 months?
Correct.
Yeah,
Yep.
okay. Yeah, thank you for
You're
looking
welcome.
into this.
Sure.
Thank you, Val. Anybody else have questions? Tony?
Yeah, quick question. I think you've started to get into it when you answered Councillor DiPaolo. But it's a flat fee, so the temptation would be there for the guy to do easier assignments, essentially, as opposed to bigger ones. But the bigger ones would give us more, like hotels, for instance, would give us more, revenue.
Yeah.
So how are you going to balance that?
That's what he's going to come in and he's going to listen to me talk at him for a little while and explain my concerns. We do have 3 hotels in town that have not filed in the past couple of years, so there will be some hotels, there will be some restaurants. There's going to be, I included the breakdown of what types of businesses comprised the 727 non-filers from the 22 grand list. So, you know, the ones that have the most members, home improvement, construction, mechanical, like that last one, with 156 businesses in that category. You know, I think there might be more in that category as opposed to the photography and art where there's only 16. So it's just, there's going to be a conversation, and I'll rely on his experience and his expertise, but he's also going to have to listen to me.
And Mark, if we can just make sure, we obviously want to make sure there's a fair process and a representative of all of the buckets that are there. So let's be sure that that there's some representation in each one, and it's done in a random way. That's fair to everybody.
We discussed that already.
Thank you.
and, yes.
Chris.
Actually, I was going to say the exact same thing, so.
You and I talked
I'm
about
sure-
it.
Right, so I know when you and I
Thanks.
spoke, and
Yeah.
Paul, I'm sure.
We all agree the same thing. T and I spoke about it today.
So there's
and-
at least
and-
someone in
Absolutely.
every single category, so
Absolutely.
you can get a.
Jack, did you have something?
Just a larger proportion, but yeah,
Of
every
course.
category will be represented, sure.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Chris. Jack.
So that actually answers the questions I had, just making sure that it's a fair process. I would also like to see, again, I know it costs more, but let's be fair. Let's also do some audits on the bigger side, just maybe not as many, because there's not as many, but percentage-wise, if we take 20% out of one pool, I'd like to see 20% out of that larger pool and spend that extra money, just to make sure that we're showing all businesses that we're being fair.
And we'll have another bite at the apple at the next meeting to also ensure the same. I agree. Anybody else?
Yeah.
Okay,
I'd just
Mr.
like
Town
to say,
Manager?
Mr. Chair, if I may, thank you to T. I know that Mr. Del Santo and I always say, how do we get to yes? It took a while, but we did it, so.
The stepwise approach is great.
Thank you, T, for everything
Thank you.
you've done.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. Okay.
Next item I have is, although it's not technically town money, it has to go through the town council, and we have Doug from the Water Department, Superintendent.
Good evening, members of the council. How is everyone tonight? Unfortunately, the water department is another town asset that doesn't get any younger as we all age. We've been in business since the late 1880s, and some of the oldest water main we have runs down through many parts of town. Through the past couple of years, there's been a number of, we've heard a lot of stories and news coming out of Washington about infrastructure monies. All those monies, whether they're call grants or not, all funneled through the Department of Health. And the Department of Health has what they call an intended use plan, which is effectively assembled by all the departments in the state, put their projects in, and they're all rated on a bunch of different parameters. There's different areas that get rated because of different reasons, but one of the primary ways they're doing is just through the impact to the communities. And the short of that is that we have a series of projects that are very advantageous for the department. I believe everybody has a 4-point list in front of them. The first one is actually is the addition of a water well. And let me preface before I go into the detail that I met with Jim Bowes, the finance director of the town, and the process that we need to follow kind of has the water department coming before town council, requesting permission to approve for these financial loans. And as we'll get into it, they're the low interest 2% loans, and the projects on here, with the exception of the first one, are subsidized up to 50%. So there's some significant benefits to the town economically. But we've been meeting and we're in locking step here. So tonight, I'm just requesting of the town council that the water department is given permission to apply, much like applying for a mortgage. You apply for the mortgage, and then they go through your financials, and then they come back, with a final loan application. So how these projects could work, one of two ways, is that we either come before town council right before we're in the process of bidding it with a request of what the entire project would be, and that would be the amount that we would seek to enter an agreement with the town for a bonding of it. And the second way is we would actually put the project out to bid. I would be bringing those bid numbers with a slight contingency before town council, and then we would be talking about, the merits of the project. But at that point, what we're looking to do is effectively, and Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, it was almost like the town is going to be co-signing on these projects. The financial burdens are completely on the wire department to pay for all of the financial, and all the payments, I believe, will be directly handled by the wire department. And, but again, the town owns the assets, and any asset that the department is looking to purchase and work on this size requires the town's kind of co-signature. So that puts a context around why I'm here. And tonight is just asking for approval. In the future, we'll get into, construction costs and so on and so forth. So there's 4 main projects and that we're looking to move forward and not just apply for funding. The first one on the list is actually a well field. We have a well field on Dunham Place. There's an existing well there now. We're in the process of constructing a second well. The actual physical well has been drilled. Some say it might be the most productive well in the entire state. So it's a very tremendous, valuable resource. The town in 21 bonded, I think it was originally $2.5 million from the town in the efforts to build this project. As the chairman of the Board of Finance Committee board was mentioning, that inflation, bad timing. The project now is potentially escalated. And, what used to be a $3 or $4 million project now looks like a $5 million project. So this request here for $3 million will bring that project construction budget whole, and it will receive a 10% subsidy. It's not in a highly subsidized area. The second one directly directs gooseneck and water main replacement in the areas that are listed listed there. I can speak in more detail regarding how many goosenecks and the age of the water main, but I'll allow the council to question that. The second one is the second phase of that, carries on much of the same thing. We're going after lead goosenecks, which are going to be required to be removed by 2037. So it's not; these are projects that it just can't be delayed. They must happen at some point. Right now, the subsidy money exists, and as the saying goes, strike when the iron's hot. And the fourth one are water main projects that are also happen to be in very old areas of town where the water main is certainly over 100 years old, and actually many of these roads on here correspond with the Public Works paving, the paving list. So these projects were fast-tracked so that we could both get old infrastructure replaced and then work in conjunction with Public Works to get those areas paved.
Thank you, Doug. Any questions? Go ahead.
I don't want to get you nervous. I'm going to vote yes, but I just want to ask the question. So this seems like common sense. So if we didn't give you permission to get financing, then the roughly $6 million would have to get paid by the ratepayers?
Correct. I think we would probably, we have made these projects a priority based on the funding that's available. That is a short time deal. That the funding is like 3 or 4 or 5 years max. First come, first serve in terms of the other communities applying for it. We're in a great place. We're effectively shovel ready is the magic words they want to hear. But yeah, if we didn't apply for it or couldn't take advantage of it now, at some point it would certainly cost much more.
Okay, thank you. Jack?
Yeah, I want to thank Doug for having the proactive approach on this. Infrastructure is something that I feel that we can never do enough of, but trying to afford it is hard. So I think this is a great proactive approach. And obviously, water is a necessity for all of our homes. So I want to just thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Just quick, so Doug, what's the time frame that, if you do get the funding?
Yeah, we're actively, some may have seen some survey crews out the winter. We got them out there early, and as it turns out, they really didn't have the bad weather that can come sometimes delay that stuff. So right now, we're hoping to get the bids out sometime this summer. We do, whenever you pursue this type of work, you have to Takes a little longer than if we were funding it ourselves, but we're going to get that subsidy. So right now, if we get all the approvals and the coordination from DPH, we hope to be bidding, hopefully mid to late summer.
So it would move pretty quickly.
It would move pretty quickly, the water commissioners were beating me up earlier. They wanted to, again, get this work done as soon as possible, which I agree with. So we would, the only problem with bidding in the fall is sometimes you don't get the most attractive bid prices.
Right.
So I would hate to promise that we would actually break ground in the fall, but I would say certainly by springtime, we would hit these areas with earnest.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions for Doug? Chris?
Just to clarify, so if I did this correctly, it's about 7 million after you receive subsidy back?
Correct, yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
all said and done, all 4 projects?
Oh, actually, no, correct. The total subsidy is 4.5 million. And then
Okay.
we would be funding the rest, yep.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Jim?
Thank you.
Yes, thanks, Doug. I appreciate your presentation. I have one observation, the Dunham Place well, that's the big producer. We want to make sure we don't draw the water table down too much over there. There's a place that needs a lot of water.
Correct. Believe it or not, the physical size of the well, it's large. There's, that aquifer is very, 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 very abundant, actually. We've pumped, well 10 is physically a large well, and they pumped it for 72 hours at 3 or 4 million gallons, and the water table barely dropped.
So this is supplemental to the one that's already there.
It is technically not a backup well, technically, but will work in conjunction with well number 9 that, can produce on a regular average almost half of what the town can use during a winter season. In the summer, with all the irrigation, all the wells are on, and that's really where we base the quantity of water we need. But on an average day in the winter, well 9 could almost do the entire town.
I only commented for Mr. Laporte.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
There's plenty of water there.
All right. So if you live on any of these streets that are here in the meeting minutes, Vermont Court, Vermont Terrace, Academy, and your roads are in rough shape, you know why. It's because they've been put on hold so that after the water's done, it doesn't get cut up again and then have to get patched. So looking forward to that getting done in the next year, and hopefully. And by doing it now in this way, we're saving the ratepayers a significant amount of money by tapping into the subsidy. So thank you, Doug.
You're welcome.
Okay.
That's my report, Mr. Chair. There'll be no executive session tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Town Manager. Moving on to the Town Attorney's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As everyone has in their packet or had in their packet, there has been a document included in there entitled Southington Public Library Naming Designation Policy. What you have there is the actual policy and then some red line changes there. Yours is in black and white. You'll see they're underlined along with notes there. This is an action item, at least for now, for this evening. I have Tom here that can answer any questions. I believe that the policy itself is pretty self-explanatory. My understanding from talking with several council members is the council, or several members of the council, had wanted to make some minor modifications to that document. I'd be happy to go over those if the council would like, or if everyone's aware of that. I can tell you, and again, Tom can sort of reconfirm this, the policy has been submitted to the committee as a whole and was voted on it. If there are changes, I believe it should be resubmitted, but they are relatively, as I believe, minor changes in that regard.
And so if you turn to one of the suggested changes for everybody, if you go to page 3, which is basically the last page of the policy, there's a provision there that says, in blue, there shall be no appeal process. So this process is basically delegating town council authority for naming the parts of the library to the library board and the library director, right? So the whole policy is about that. Rather than have no appeal process, if there was somebody objected with the process, we would have the town council be the petitioning board. So, we should change the wording there to something like there shall be a opportunity for, a petition to the town council should there be any grievances instead of no. And then the front, the suggestion is we have to insert the dates in the motion And the motion would be insert date today, April 22nd, 2024 in the motion. And I spoke with the library director, and he was okay with June 30th, 2025 as the expiration date for this delegation. So we'll look for a motion on those. We could talk more about it, I think, during the old business, if that's okay with everybody.
Happy to answer your questions if anybody has any.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Town Attorney. We're moving on to public communications. Anybody would like to come on up and say something during public communications? Please, we encourage you to do so.
Sorry, Susan Zabahansky, 28 Working Street. I have to come back up. I did not say we were adding psychologists. I said there were psychologists that were supposed to drop out of the budget that are not in this current budget, dropping out and are going to be funded through this budget instead of through ARP ESSER funds. So I want to make that clear. The other thing I want to talk about that I missed was when we have a reserve fund that is supposed to be about 11% and it's at 17%, that means that we're overtaxing the residents of Southington, in my opinion. We had an extra $1 million, I think, this year that we then said to the police department and the fire department, what would you like to do with this $1 million? I'm sure we would like that as a taxpayer. I would like that money to sit in my savings account and not in the town's savings account. So that's just something I wanted to bring up. I noticed that the Connecticut Insider reporter left. She didn't bring up Board of Ed budget at all in her top earners in Southington. The 3 top earners in Southington can fall in that list of Board of Education. Our 3 administrators, the top administrators in Board of Education combined, make a total of about $600,000. Might be a little more if we include all their benefits. So I just wanted to bring that up. Another thing I want to bring up is that state funding, when we talk about, oh, the state didn't fund something, that's still Southington taxpayer dollars. So it doesn't matter where we shift them around, if the state shifts them to us or we shift them to the state, that's still our taxpayer dollars, and one way or another we're going to be paying it. So we need to be diligent when we're talking about grants and things that are coming from state money. And then another request is that everyone speaks into these microphones, because when I'm at home, if you're like this, I can't hear you. So thank you.
Thank you, Sue.
Regina Coviello, 12 Beecher Street. Kind of have, maybe after I talk about this, you might be able to do some research for me and find some more information. Just this week, I became aware of some information from my friend Effie. She had to leave. And then my own granddaughter then verified it. I guess right now at the Southington High School, the students have been told that if they don't pay on their lunch accounts, that they are not going to be able to go to their junior and senior proms. And this just came about this week. That's unacceptable. All kids should be able to, go to their prom. I don't know if this was because they did have free lunches for a while and somehow there was a lapse, because I know it used to be where you put money on the account first, and then if you didn't have money, well, they give you, I think, one lunch, but then you had to put money on the account the next time. So I don't know what happened there. Okay, if anyone has any information, it would be great. But I also did want to give you this information is to check with your kids. And I was told that you can go on an account called Power School, and it can bring up what they owe. Okay, but I know a lot of parents didn't have a clue about this, because normally they would get some notice, and they didn't. And then also, if there's anyone that would like to help some of the students, pay for their lunches that they owe, they're at the high school. It's called SHS Cares, and you can give a check to help pay for some of these. But if you guys know any information, please let me know also. Okay?
Thank you,
Thank
Regina.
you.
Thank you for coming. Anybody else? Madam Chair?
The road is long to the microphone.
Distinguished.
Hi, everybody.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Victoria Triano, 33 Bellevue Avenue. Just a couple of things. I am so touched, Michael, that you are making this motion. And anyone who knew Joe knew that he operated from the heart. And he was principled in so many ways. And he, if he made up his mind, he was going to do everything he could to get something completed with excellence, on time and budget. And, you know, growing up in town and seeing Joe, having breakfast with him every morning at the Carousel, he just made such an impression on my heart my whole life. And so I was just so pleased that you brought that up. Thank you. The other thing I just wanted to say is that on Thursday, May 2nd, is National Day of Prayer. Now, I have to tell you a little bit about, I promise I'm going to keep you long, but I do have to tell you the background. National Day of Prayer was initiated by, in 1952, Hoover? Was he the president? Anyway, when Reagan got in 81, I was on the council. Isn't that funny? I was on the council in 81. And I heard Reagan talk about that he was going to change the date to the first Thursday in May. And I thought, well, if they're doing it nationally, why don't we do it? So we've had National Day of Prayer recognition in Southington on the Green public statement since 1981, I believe. And so I just want to extend an invitation to everybody. Some of you need it more than most, but, you know, that's okay. I'm
That's
just
me.
saying, get your faith on, get your faith on. It's going to be 12 noon on the Green. It lasts for about 45 minutes to an hour. The town manager has been standing with me the whole time that he's been on, and so you're all very much invited. There was just once during COVID where we didn't have the gathering on the Green, but I went down to the Green because I thought maybe somebody didn't know. So I went down to the Green, and sure enough, there were about 10 or 12 people. They go, what are you doing? Well, now that you're here, we'll mark the day anyway. But one of the things I had asked all the clergy to please stand on the front door of their church and pray for the entire town. And while the 10 or 12 of us were praying, I happened to look up, and your pastor, Pastor Ron Brown, was on the front steps of First Congregational Church, and it's been with me ever since. So we're going to be there. Mr. Town Manager, I've got your proclamation ready to roll, and there's a spot for all of you. Get your faith on. I'll see you on Thursday. Take care, everybody.
Thank you, Victoria.
Under 5 minutes, I'm impressed. Follow the rules.
Did I make it? Oh, good.
Okay, anybody else would like to speak during public communications? Going once, twice, okay. Public communications is closed. Let's move on to old business. Item A, Michael.
Now's my time. Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have to do this legally because we do have an ordinance in town that says that a person needs to be deceased for a period of 5 years. So we're going to ask, part of my motion is to waive that 5-year wait and do it, soon. So I want to make a motion under Chapter 59-7 to waive the 5-year period requirement of Chapter 59-4 of the Code of Southington and to name the pavilion at the Southington Drive-In the Joseph J. Laporte Community Pavilion.
Second.
We were going to allow Chris Palmieri to second, if that was okay.
Sorry.
Second.
Thanks, Jim.
You got to prep me on that stuff.
That's okay, that's okay. Okay, any discussion about that? Please, Val.
Sure, I need to speak because Dan's here. So, you know, Dan, from a personal note, I kind of know how you feel. When the pool was dedicated for my dad, it just made, you know, it touched our family. It's an honor, it's a privilege, and to be able to sit up here and take this vote and allow this pavilion to be named for your dad. You know, we go way back, and loved your dad, So I know this is, I know you see this as a great honor, so I'm glad we can do this.
Anybody else?
I want to say something.
Jim?
Dan, I just have to say that your daughter did a wonderful eulogy, and I will never forget that they're the Lee sisters. That was hilarious. And that's Joe, so it was awesome.
And I know I spoke a ton. The only thing I will add is that, to Victoria's point, it wasn't always rainbows and butterflies with Joe. He challenged me. He challenged probably a lot of us. He would call me and he'd yell, "Why are we doing planning and zoning for years? Why are we doing this and why are we not doing that? And help me understand." And sometimes I'm like, okay, but what a man. What a man. He'll be ever remembered. And I'm hoping that this small token of our appreciation will live on and continue his legacy.
Just one comment. That pavilion truly has become the beacon of that park. The use throughout the summer, especially with our drive-in, and I don't mean just in our community, just the people coming in, but truly it's a beacon in that park, the way I liken your father being a beacon to our community. So it's a great tribute.
And we'll have a ceremony at some point. That's in the works.
Yeah, let's let everybody else finish up here. Does anybody else want to make comments? Okay, I'll just say, Dan, please come on up. While you're coming up, I also had the great honor of knowing your dad, and not as long as Mike, but got to know him over the last handful of years and had coffees with him at the carousel, and he's, always had kind things to say, always asked questions and challenged when it was on his mind, but always in a thoughtful and caring way, always passionate. Also, of course, had the opportunity to also talk with your mom. And I will say, my daughter is working over at the Orchards, and she was touched by your dad and your mom this past year, working there as a server. And she would come home, after serving there and talk about your parents and your dad. And thank you for sharing your dad. And, thank your dad for all the lives he's touched in our community.
Well, obviously.
Yeah, we have to vote.
Oh, sure.
We're going to vote on this, and then we'll let you talk, okay? So why don't...
Like my father, I won't shut up.
The town attorney and I were just talking. Can we make a first motion to waive, and the second motion will be for the name?
So my first motion, I said it, is to waive it.
And Mr. Palmer,
To waive the
second.
ordinance requirement.
So let's call that.
In a second, can we please call the roll, Madam Chair, on waiving the ordinance requirement of 5 years?
Toni Morrison,
Yes.
Christopher Palmieri.
Yes.
Jack Perry,
Yes.
Jennifer Klock.
Yes.
Michael Del Santo.
Yes.
Valerie DiPaolo.
Yes?
William Dietzick.
Yes.
James Morelli.
Yes.
Paul Chaplinsky.
Yes.
And now the motion to rename the Southington Community Pavilion the Joseph J. Laporte Community Pavilion.
And I'll second.
Okay, any discussion on that?
Just one, no, I'm joking.
So this is a vote to rename the pavilion as specified. Madam Chair, call the roll.
Toni Morrison,
Yes.
Christopher Palmieri.
Yes.
Jack Perry,
Yes.
Jennifer Klock.
Yes.
Michael Del Santo.
Yes.
Valerie DiPaolo,
Yes.
William Dietzick.
Yes.
James Morelli,
Yes. It's
Paul Chaplinsky.
Absolutely, yes. We also have a small token. You can take this and have a look at it a little bit later. But congratulations.
I just got an item.
Thanks. Wow. Obviously, judging by my reaction, I wasn't ready for this. So I apologize for the breakdown, but it's tough. Sorry. Community is the main word. Hopefully you can edit this. Can they
Yeah,
delete this
take your
part?
time, take your time. It's all good.
No, it's community, and that's what that pavilion is, Southington community. It's a unbelievable community. And that's, I don't know, I'm not going to be able to talk, but anyway, we live in a great, great community, and I thank you for this. Sorry.
And we know.
Thanks, Dan.
And Dan, we know that
You're okay.
we know that your mother's going to watch as well. So we thank your mom as well.
Yes.
Thank you, Dolores, for all the support.
You're welcome.
Okay. Now, you'll have to give us an update on the app another time, okay, Dan?
Sorry for those who thought.
Sorry to make you
Yeah,
come up.
sorry for everyone else who was here tonight on the VIF.
Wonderful. Okay, everybody. Why don't we move on to the 9B, action on the report of Board of Finance.
Motion to approve.
Second?
We have a motion and a second on the report to approve the Board of Finance. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. We are looking for item C, action on Water Department request for approval to apply for Connecticut DPH low-interest project funding.
So moved.
We have a motion by Tony,
I'll second.
second by Chris. Any discussion on that?
Hydrogen,
Okay,
oxygen.
if there's no discussion, any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Morrison,
Yes.
Palmieri,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Clock,
Yes.
Del Santo,
Yes.
DiPaolo,
Yes?
Dietzick,
Yes.
Morelli,
Yes.
Chaplinsky.
Yes. Motion passes unanimously. Item D, action on library naming policy. We had the date of April 22nd as the start. We had June 30th as the expiration date, and the requested change to just change, instead of no appeals, that the town council would be the petitioning body for any grievances regarding the
Are
process.
those separate motions or two?
And,
No, you can
and
do
if,
it with, as amended, you can make the motion.
and if, what we should do is, if you can just read the motion
Okay.
as written by, I think Corporation Counsel
whole
wrote
thing?
it. Yep.
Before we do that, are there?
Yeah, any questions on that? Or why don't we,
You're going to do the motion and then?
yeah, any changes that you want for before the motion?
Well, the only change, technical change is in paragraph 2. I think you want to take out rates, because you're trying to replace all the wording.
Yeah, I think that that's the only technical change. There are some additions as well that corporate counsel had drafted this, but I would be happy to send a clean copy to everyone tomorrow. They're the three changes that Paul had mentioned. That being an automatic termination after 18 months, that the policy itself would revert or essentially die in its vine.
It's June 30th. Yep.
June
June 30th.
apologize.
Yep, 2025.
18 months.
Yep.
There was what we'll call the terminology under Section 4. Section 4 is intended to not bootstrap the council or the library committee for the time being from terminating a recognition or a name, whether it be a room, a bench, or a portion of the library. This provision stated there should be no appeal, and I think the council has suggested that it be changed to that any aggrieved member can petition the council should they not be happy with that decision.
Right, so Lou, I'm talking about in paragraph 2,
Section B.
section B, where there's wording here about welcoming young children. It says naming rights, and it looked like in the entire document, you're trying to take out that word and put designation.
That's correct.
So just.
So instead of naming rights, naming designation?
Like it
Okay.
is in the rest of
Where
the.
is that? I don't see it.
So it's
Section
paragraph,
2.
Right here, naming rights.
yep, naming, so it's section 2B.
Paragraph B.
And then in the blue, it will say, with the understanding that the entire library is welcoming to young children, naming designation instead of rights. Okay? So that would the petitioning to the council change, and then the date of today is the start, and June 30th, 2025 is the expiration.
Your motion, you just put in there as amended, whoever makes the motion.
Okay.
And then
yeah.
can I just add, so I just have a concern about and with Tom being here, maybe he can speak to this a bit, about the Friends room. So the Friends room and the book sales room and the Friends workroom, I'm wondering if those should not be on as naming opportunities, that room.
That would be at the discretion of the
Yeah,
library.
the library director is going to handle that. The library board's
So is that
going
going to
to,
be, so would that be something that would be in the discretion of,
the library
Based-
board.
Based on
and
this,
the-
the library board would designate what gets named and what doesn't get named.
Yeah.
So
I think they're working on that already, though.
I'm sorry, you have to state your name.
Yeah.
So it's Thomas Piazzo, Library Director. The naming rights document is still in progress. They have a draft of approximately 15 spaces, of which some of the Friends areas are included in that. This was done by the Capital Campaign Committee in conjunction with the fundraising consultant that they contracted for about a year in building out the campaign. So
that
would
that
go
would
to
have
the
to be in
committee.
their discretion if they want to not allow that room to be.
Correct.
To be open to a naming opportunity.
Correct, yes.
Okay, okay.
So
Chris.
just to support Val, I agree with Val's sentiments here, and we're actually giving up some of our rights as a council. So I'd actually like, before we relinquish all our rights, I do think the Friends should be under a special consideration because they are an entity that's primary purpose is for the library. So
So you're saying they should be eligible for a naming designation?
Not.
Or not?
No, we're saying, yeah.
I'm not sure I understand what the concern is.
Well, my concern is that the Friends in all these libraries are like partners, right, with the library, for the most part.
Yes.
All the work that the Friends group does, it goes back to benefit.
To the benefit of the
to-
library.
Of the library. They've been doing it for a long time.
I'm not sure I understand the concern, though. Can you maybe just clarify?
The concern is the Friends group they're a bit disappointed that they've been approached that they have to come up with $25,000 to be able to name their room. Their room that, from all the designs and from the beginning, it's always been called the Friends Used Bookstore,
Right.
the Friends Workroom.
Okay.
So I'm just raising this. I'm
so the-
just kind of raising it.
This is a great example about a grievance that should come to us. So
But do we want to, we have the ability right now to just at least get an opinion, and the simple fix here might be that the Friends Room is just not a naming opportunity for the public.
But Val, here's my concern is we're either going to designate to the library board to make decisions and work through these issues with the library director, or we're not. I mean, if we want to get into, we feel this room or that room, then we should just retain the rights and we should hear all the namings as they
So
come.
I'm just bringing it up now because
I agree with you.
we're looking at the policy.
I suggest, however, though, if this is one, then we encourage the Friends to petition the council
To come back to the
to come back
council.
to the council, and let's hear it as a separate issue.
Okay.
That's my suggestion.
Yeah.
Because I
just-
think you bring up a
just don't want
valid
this to
point.
turn- I don't want to hold up the capital campaign. That's
Exactly.
important. And, looking at we all received correspondence today, so, I don't want it to become, a big issue. I'd like it just to be able to move along and.
I agree with you, Val. There should be some consideration there. The only thing is, I don't know exactly what. So I think if they came back with a grievance to us,
Then we would
a
have
well
to
thought
maybe
out, we
deal
could
with
talk
it
about it. We
then.
could,
Okay.
let's
I'm fine with that.
let's put it on an agenda. And I bet you with some more discussion with Tom here now, he could probably bring back the message as well. And maybe there's some opportunity for them to handle it as well before it
Yeah,
even.
Mr. Chair, you need a second on that motion before we can engage in discussion.
Well,
I thought we
haven't actually even had a
We didn't make
motion.
the motion yet.
We haven't made it yet.
I apologize, I thought, Mr.
No, I was going to make it.
We were getting,
Oh, Jim did.
Yeah, we didn't make it yet.
we were
Because
getting
we may
ready
have
to
been
make it.
But then, yeah, we
We may have
took
been
it
putting a
back.
change in.
We did, but we took it
Concerned
back.
about Robert's rules and the-
We were trying to finish what the motion should be, because Val may have had
changes.
another suggestion.
So, and I'll turn to you, because I know you've been in many public libraries in Connecticut. Is a Friends space a typical space in public libraries?
It is sometimes. The
Okay.
Friends groups often approach the library for an opportunity to donate from their funds to support the project. So in this instance, the board approached the Friends,
Yeah.
and that, I think, occasioned the communication that you received today.
So did the whole board approach the Friends, or?
The Capital Campaign Committee, who are working on the naming rights, wanted to give the
We have a
Friends
consultant.
opportunity to name the space.
I mean, I'm
I
fine
would
with everything
say-
else. I just agree with Val in that one space, that is the Friends space. I don't think it should need to require.
There's no reason why you couldn't still call it the Friends space that was dedicated by Val DiPaolo. And if the Friends don't want to raise the 25,000 and Val wants to donate it, then she can donate it. If you guys don't want that, if you guys don't want that,
Checkbook it out.
then I would, if you guys don't want that, and you just want Friends, period, and you don't want them to raise money, then you should go to the library board and Tom and say, we oppose this. And if they don't do it for you, then I would bring it back here.
Well, it's not us. I'm basing it off of,
Right.
I'm basing it off of what we received today and some conversations with library board members. That's all.
Yeah.
So it was on our agenda tonight. It was a good time to bring it up. The letter was from a board member. It wasn't from the capital campaign. The letter to the
The-
Friends was from a board member.
That's the chair of the capital campaign.
Right, but it didn't have that listed. It just had board member. And other
Okay.
board members were not aware that this letter went out.
If you want, we can have a special meeting and we can talk about it at the library, on the library board's agenda.
Well, I'm hoping they can all talk about it and
Okay, so
figure out
what's,
what they're going to do. So I feel comfortable if we're going to have language in here that allows for if this goes forward, if something like the Friends Group decides that they are not happy with what's going on, that they have the recourse to come back, then,
that was the reason why we changed it.
right,
Yep.
then that's okay, because we can't, to try to sit here and figure that out does
And
not make sense.
to be honest, we just got this memo, so really, to really get to the background and everything before today, and,
Well, we
it's,
could table this, but.
then we're gonna delay.
It's a delay in the
Yeah,
capital
exactly.
campaign, so, is it?
Jack?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I echo Chris's and Val's concerns on this. I think that, again, there's a volunteer group, and I think we undermine them by kind of holding them hostage of saying 25,000. I get where everybody's coming, that it could go to the library board, but again, it's at the council right now. This is our authority. So, again, to pass it on to them and then say, well, bring it back to us, it's just counterproductive.
Were they told they had to give the 25,000, or they were asked to give the 25,000?
Well,
I don't think they're being held hostage.
But again, us as a
Did you read the
council.
letter?
Let's let them talk.
Us as the council, right now, it's being brought to our attention. So I would love to have a vote on that right now, where everybody stands on that one issue. Before we start relinquishing, the authority and the powers, it's at this council level. So I'd rather have a stance here, and again, we were all elected to do what we feel is best for this town. So I would love to have that vote casted tonight, and if it doesn't pass, then it doesn't pass.
So, can I, just as a suggestion, why don't we approve everything except for that one space? We can table that one space maybe then, get more information, so that we are not holding up your capital campaign, except for that one room.
We're actually not holding anything up to everybody. There's a process that's defined for a grievance in here. All they have to do is come with the there was an initial memo that was sent from the library board member or the capital campaign member. Maybe the first thing they should do is talk to the library board first and find out if they can come to an agreement. That's a reasonable approach. Instead of putting us in a position where at the very beginning of this action, they're coming to us right away. I think we should give them and afford them the courtesy and the opportunity to work through it, use the process, and I would strongly say that there's people on the council, to the library board and the decision makers at the library board, that there's a legitimate concern from the Friends group. It's heard loud and clear here. We're putting a process in place that allows them to do the naming. We're asking the library board to use their discretion, listen to all the parties, and if the parties can't agree, then the grievance comes back to us and we hear it. I think it's a reasonable approach. I'm not sure why we would force a vote on something today that we really don't have all of the information on. The email came to us literally just before the meeting today. We don't really have all the facts.
So to Jack's point, that we're going to send it, we're going to relinquish, then we're going to send it out, and maybe it comes back. Why don't we table it?
Or just
To be able to look at it.
Jen?
I guess I'm confused as to what we're we're getting involved in, because it seems like we have a committee that needs to have a discussion, and we're setting up a process for this exact reason, and that all seems to make sense to me. So I'm confused as to why we would kind of get in the weeds into this item where they can take care of this business, and if there's a grievance, come back through us, through the process.
We've heard all of the anybody else have discussion? Anybody else? Jim? Let's have a motion on this, and then we can decide. Jim, make your motion, and then we can have further discussion.
I make a motion to move under Chapter 59-7 of Southington Code of Ordinances to authorize the current Library Capital Campaign Committee to review proposed naming nominations in connection with the building of the new Southington Library and send recommendations in connection with its reviews to the Southington Library Board of Directors. Town Council authority under Chapter 59, accepting Chapters 59-1 and 59-4, shall be delegated to the Southington Library Board of Directors. This authority shall be governed by the Southington Public Library naming designation policy adopted by the Southington Library Board of Directors on April 22nd, 2024, and this delegation shall expire on June 30th, 2025. Said delegation authority shall be governed by all provisions of Chapter 59 of the Southington Code of Ordinances and only have jurisdiction in connection with the new Southington Library being built in 2024. And I would go on to say that we would like to amend it as in our packet, or as we discussed earlier.
In the policy, so this is the policy that's in our packet, Jim, right?
Yes.
What are you going to amend? Why don't you just make sure you state, because there's been discussion on the amending.
Okay, it's already in the record?
So we know for sure that your motion was on the petitioning the town council for grievances.
Right.
Val mentioned changing the word rights to designation in paragraph 2 of 2B.
Yep.
And then, are you making a motion on the Friends of the Library Room?
No. No, I think it's second.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Let's continue the discussion.
Seconded it.
Mike seconded it.
Okay. Again, I have no problem with the whole thing. Would we consider just removing that one space so that we could revisit that one space, and then the rest you can move forward with? Would we consider that? Like that, the friend space, that's it. Everything else, everything you said is fine.
to us?
Meaning, so what we're really doing tonight is we hold the naming responsibilities now. We relinquish all of the naming except for the friend space, because to me, it's foolish for us to relinquish it, only for them to come back to the council, which is us, to appeal it. So all I'm asking for is, would we consider removing that one space from the approval that we're putting forward? Then I'm fine with that. It's just that one space which again, wasn't a surprise until we got the email.
Anybody else?
Well,
What difference does this make?
Hold on a
Sorry.
second, Val.
What
Tony?
difference does this make? I'm still grappling with that in the sense that you know, the. Okay.
Go ahead, Tony. Finish.
Okay, in the sense that you know, it's going to be the same result, whatever happens. So why do we care?
what do you mean it's the same result?
It's the same result.
It's gonna come back to us.
It's going to come back to us, and we
Right.
have the authority to listen to a grievance and say, and we can adjudicate that. It's going to be exactly the same. I
But
don't
we're
understand
able-
this
we're
discussion.
I mean,
Thanks, Tony.
We're here
Val.
now, and
Right.
we're here now, and we're talking about it, and I think because there's a list of naming opportunities where the Friends are more of they're a 501c organization, they're more of a partner to the library. I just think the easiest thing is to say, don't have the Friends room on the naming opportunities for the public. So yes, we are getting into the weeds a bit because we have the authority right now. We haven't relinquished it yet. So
Mr. Chair,
if-
can I ask a question?
Yes.
Sorry, Val, I don't want to cut
Go
you
ahead,
off.
nope, that's,
So, am I to understand that, are they concerned that someone's going to come in and name their space? Is that the paramount?
Something other than the Friends.
yes, somebody other than the Friends, because I think, I'm just putting myself in there, you know, I was on the library board for a number of years, and, you know, you're aware of the Friends group and what they do and all the money that comes back into the library. I think their concern is that they want to continue as a partner, right? They want to keep, it's been 30 years, they want to continue as a partner. When the designs were put together, everything was always referred to as the Friends used book room or the Friends workspace. And I think now just the fact that it's on that naming opportunities list, that's what's bothersome to them. They just don't want that to be able to, somebody else, like Jim said, the Friends Used Bookstore funded by, Valerie DiPaolo. I think they want it to continue to be the Friends Bookstore. I'm
Bill-
just kind of,
I would say.
Well, hold on, Jim, let's just let Val.
I mean, I understand they're trying to raise money. The capital campaign is trying to raise money. They're trying to find areas in the library where there can be, donors can, have a plaque or have a name. We did it with our foundation, and we picked an area that, we would like to have our name on. I just think the Friends is different. I think the Friends group, because they're a separate entity and what they've done over the years, I don't know that it makes sense to get them that upset that they might say, well, maybe we won't stay, and that's going to really hurt the library if they don't stay.
Bill.
I don't think your asks are like unreasonable at all. I'm like learning this as it's going. I don't sit on the library board. My only thing is that, like maybe if we had a motion to table, right? But we don't really want to table it because we understand, it's going to hurt the capital campaign. But I feel like send it to the committee, let the committee vet the issue. We've heard one side. Everything you said, Val, I'm listening. I'm like, oh yeah, no. But it's almost like send it to the committee, let the committee vet both sides of the argument, make their decision, and then we still retain jurisdiction to go left or right on it. I just think with the time crunch of the capital campaign, I don't think your asks are unreasonable, but that's kind of where I sit.
Yep.
Anybody else? Jack?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So everybody keeps saying process, right? So the process is what we're going through right now. We have an ordinance, and we're trying to amend it or give authority to another body. I think this is a great time to discuss it now and take action on this issue now. We know this is an issue because the Friends of the Library brought it to the council that this is an issue. So all we're doing is going to create a bigger burden to that committee that they're going to have to meet and then hash it out instead of trying to raise money. We already know it's an issue, so why send it to them to then have them hash it out instead of trying to focus on moving that forward? It's almost counterproductive. We know it's an issue, and it's going to come back here. And I would love to see this just their space saved for them because, again, nonprofits are very difficult. I'm on the Historical Society Board of Directors. Trying to get volunteers and people to try to, help out, you need 2 jobs just to pay bills. We heard residents tonight. So volunteerism is kind of dropped, especially with the 501c3s. So I just don't want to make them feel discouraged and then it hurt the town more, and it's kind of stepping over dollars to pick up dimes. So I can't support this tonight because, again, if it stays in there, I can't support it.
Jim? You had asked earlier.
Well, I was going to make a comment that, the Friends were not happy with the space that was designed in, and they went back to the building committee, or actually the study committee with DRA, and we actually reconfigured the entire library to give them a bigger space. And I will also say, you know what, if we're going to take the Friends out, then I don't want naming opportunities in the historical room. So if we're going to start taking rooms out and say you can't put a name on this one and not that one, where do we stop? And so again, I do believe that this process is a bulletproof process. And I also believe that if we can't work it out with the Friends on the library board side and the library director's side, we got a problem and it's going to come back here.
That's right. Okay. Anybody else? Listen, I have a lot of confidence in the library board and the Friends working together. The library board, the capital campaign, I think I really do believe that if they talk about this, that they will come to a resolution that's good for both sides. I have no doubt. And I do believe that this council, if we approve this, if there's an issue and there's a grievance, even at the next meeting, we can put this policy in place. We can hear a grievance at the next meeting. We can hear a grievance that's well thought out with 2 sides of the story, which there's probably a couple different sides. I'm pretty sure that most people up here agree that that the Friends of the Library are a very valuable organization and a partner with the library. I have no doubts that they're going to come to an agreement, and that if there's a grievance, that this council will act in an appropriate way that's good for everybody, including the Friends. Let's call the roll, Madam Clerk.
Morrison,
Yes.
Palmieri,
No.
Perry,
No.
Clock,
Yes.
Del Santo,
Yes.
DiPaolo,
No?
Dietzick,
Yes.
Morelli,
Yes.
Chaplinsky.
Yes, the motion fails 6-3. No,
Passes.
I don't, no,
Passes.
It's his motion.
but then the waiver of the provision,
Jim's motion was to approve it as stated.
I'm sorry, my apologies. I'm looking at the waiver provision, it says, we may waive the provisions with a 7-vote.
I'm sorry, what are you looking at?
I'm looking at the government namings policy. The government namings policy says that the
Doesn't
town
it-
council may
Does it
waiver.
fall under the ordinance?
I don't know, does it fall in the?
I think it falls under the ordinance.
It does, yes.
Yeah.
It does, okay.
The town council may waive any provision above with an affirmative vote of 7 members of the town council.
No, you're absolutely right.
So the motion fails. We did not succeed to help the capital campaign. Okay. We have item number 10A, tax refunds.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve the tax refunds that are presented in our packet.
Second.
Any discussion on the tax refunds? Okay, hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Looking for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Tom?
Thanks, everybody.